Chapter 878. The dazzling light shone down like it was daytime, firmly focused on them. Shit! Tang Jing secretly cried out and hurriedly looked around. Sure enough, the surroundings were already filled with people. The police with loaded guns had already surrounded the ruins so that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Each one of them held a gun, the black muzzle of the gun pointed at them. Two people walked out from behind the crowd and exclaimed at the same time, "Tang Jing, you didn't die?" Ding Liang and number 2 looked at Tang Jing as if they had seen a ghost. They clearly already knew of his death. Tang Jing said with a smile, "I'm lucky, I won't die." Ding Liang looked at him in disbelief, and number 2, who was beside him, also stared at them with a burning gaze, his sharp gaze sweeping over them. They were very clear that Tang Jing was resourceful and had many tricks up his sleeve. Perhaps he had used some method to deceive Rockefeller's people. Just now we searched once and clearly there was no one. How did you suddenly appear? Number 2 asked in a deep voice. Tang Jing had specifically left without stopping in order to avoid direct contact with them. He didn't think that they would come so quickly and coincidentally bump into them. Since things had already gotten to this point, he could only make up some nonsense and muddle through. Tang Jing pretended to be calm and said indifferently, "Qi, how can you understand the various abilities of a cultivator?" "I naturally have a way to escape." Number 2 looked at him with half trust and half doubt, as if trying to discern the truth of his words. Tang Jing was unmoved and looked at him indifferently. When their eyes met, it was as if there were invisible sparks in the air. Tang Jing's character was outstanding and in the end didn't reveal any flaws. Number 2 had no choice but to look away and change the question. "That strange roar just now, did you hear it?" "Of course I heard it." "Do you know what it was? Could it be that there are some monsters in the capital?" Tang Jing deliberately asked back. There was no need to deny this question. If they didn't hear it, it would instead arouse suspicion. That dragon's roar had practically spread through the streets of the capital. "I also wanted to ask you this question," Number 2 coldly said. Tang Jing pretended to be stunned and asked in puzzlement, "Why are you asking me? I've never heard of such a sound." "Oh, right, didn't the dragon group capture a lot of demonic beasts for research? Could it be those demonic beasts?" "How is that possible? Those demonic beasts have all been properly dealt with. Moreover, that voice clearly came from here." Number 2 pointed at his feet and said. Tang Jing shrugged, spread his hands, and said helplessly, "Then I don't know." "Then ask me something you know. Where are Li Xiaotian and Song Yu? What's with this explosion?" Number 2 asked, unwilling to give up. Tang Jing said without hesitation, "Do you still need to ask?" "Of course, the explosion was caused by Song Yu. That guy is crazy and tried to kill us with an explosion in the capital. He must have escaped long ago. You can't just turn a blind eye to it, right?" After pausing for a moment, he ambiguously continued, "As for Li Xiaotian, when the explosion happened, how could I care about anyone else? Perhaps she was killed by the explosion." "Killed by the explosion?" Number 2 and Ding Liang looked at each other. Both of them weren't too sure. The power of the explosion just now was indeed too great. A magnificent palace had been blown into ruins. How could a body of flesh and blood withstand such terrifying power? "Of course we won't let Song Yu go. Since he dares to act so recklessly, we will definitely arrest him and bring him to justice." Tang Jing faintly smiled, "Then I'll have to trouble you. If this kind of antisocial person is left in this world, he will only be a problem for society. Also, with Rockefeller acting like this, are you really going to ignore it? The higher-ups will have their own countermeasures. You don't need to worry about this. You just need to take care of yourself and don't cause any more trouble," Number 2 said. Tang Jing's eyes flashed with thought-provoking sharpness, but he didn't promise the other. Instead, he said, "I can't guarantee that. Rockefeller dares to kill me and use the people around me to threaten me. How can I just let this go? I will use all my power to keep them on this land." Number 2's gaze turned cold, like a terrifying bolt of lightning. He stared unkindly at Tang Zheng and said, "Didn't you hear Ding Liang's order before? Don't mess with Rockefeller." Tang Zheng dryly laughed a few times and said, "This matter has nothing to do with me. Of course you guys don't care. But he came to kill me. If I leave this disaster behind, then wouldn't I and the people around me be in danger at any time? It's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Some things can't be solved. Are you really going to turn the capital upside down?" Number 2 took a step forward and approached Tang Zheng. Before Tang Zheng could make a move, Yen Patian had already taken the lead and stood in front of Tang Zheng to protect him. He said, "You guys can put yourself in Tang Zheng's shoes and think about it. Is all of this his fault? If we don't work together to resist the enemy, wouldn't we be a joke to outsiders?" However, Number 2 was not afraid of Yen Patian, and said sternly, "Elder Yen, have you thought it through? Could it be that your Yen family really wants to get involved in this mess?" Yen Patian laughed out loud and said disapprovingly, "Yen family swears to stand together with Tang Zheng. Any person or power that dares to go against Tang Zheng, the Yen family will definitely not sit idly by." When Yen Patian saw the 5-clawed golden dragon, his confidence in Tang Zheng soared to an unprecedented level. Of course, he would stand on his side without reservation. Although Number 2 represented the authorities, and even the intentions of the higher-ups, he still supported Tang Zheng without hesitation. Number 2 was overwhelmed with shock. He was very clear about the cautious style of these large families. Although the Yen family was the leader of the large families in the past and had great strength, they had never gone against the authorities. However, this time, he clearly supported Tang Zheng, which was equivalent to standing on the opposite side of the authorities. Furthermore, Yen Patian was very clear about who exactly Number 2 represented, but he still did not turn back. This couldn't help but shock Number 2. Could it be that Yen Patian thought so highly of Tang Zheng that he didn't even give face to the authorities? Yen Patian did not care about Number 2's thoughts, he only looked at him firmly, indicating his firm stance. Number 2 coldly snorted, and did not comment. His gaze turned to Tang Zheng, and said, "Tang Zheng, you've caused such a big commotion. Come with me, someone wants to see you." Tang Zheng guessed that the chief definitely wanted to see him. Since the matter had become so big, it wouldn't be bad to test the other party's bottom line. Although even if the other party explicitly opposed it, he would still attack Rockefeller without hesitation. "I'll go with you," Lan Yu said without hesitation, obviously afraid that his son would suffer. There were many experts in the inner palace, and Tang Zheng was alone. It was truly risky. Only Tang Zheng can go. Number 2 did not show any mercy, and looked deeply at Lan Yu. Of course he knew Lan Yu's identity. She was the wife of the previous martial sect master and Tang Zheng's biological mother. Even if she threw away these identities, she was still a great master martial artist and was not someone to be underestimated. Tang Zheng was full of confidence as he shook his head and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." But Lan Yu still wanted to dissuade him, but Tang Zheng smiled and shook his head. His voice became gentler as he said, "Go home and wait for me." Seeing her son speak so gently to her, Lan Yu was stunned, and her eyes sparkled as she looked at him. Tang Zheng's attitude towards Lan Yu became much better. Although he could not personally call her mother, he was no longer as cold as before. "Okay." Lan Yu's heart felt warm, and the corners of her mouth lifted in gratification and excitement. But when she turned her head and stared at Number 2, her eyes became especially sharp and full of aggression. She said with killing intent, "If anyone dares to hurt little Zheng, I will risk my life to kill them. No matter who it is, even if they escape to the ends of the earth, I will not let them go." This blatant threat made Number 2 unable to do anything. After all, Lan Yu had the confidence to say this. Ding Liang hurriedly tried to smooth things over and said, "Everyone, don't misunderstand. Tang Zheng is just going back to cooperate with the investigation. Nothing will happen. You guys go back. Wait for me to come back, then we'll discuss how to deal with Rockefeller and Song Yu." Tang Zheng said without any hesitation. The few of them nodded, and with a tap of their feet, they flew out from the encirclement. With a few ups and downs, they disappeared into the night. The surrounding policemen were dumbstruck. "Let's go," Number 2 said coldly to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng smiled, and took a car with Number 2 and Ding Liang to the heavily guarded courtyard house. But along the way, Tang Zheng saw that there were many more people on the streets. Although it was early in the morning, many citizens were walking on the streets. It was obvious that such a big commotion had disturbed their good dreams, and they all ran out to see what was going on. However, this was easier said than done. The streets and alleys were already filled with armed policemen, and there were also many soldiers who had joined in to maintain order and separate the crowd. The imperial city was already heavily protected, and no one was allowed to get close. As for what exactly happened in the center of the imperial city, because it happened in the dead of night, not even a single photo was sent out. However, paper couldn't wrap fire. The huge explosion and the dragon's roar would definitely cause a huge disturbance. Tang Zheng didn't say a word as he got out of the car and walked into the courtyard house. He found that the security of the courtyard house had at least doubled. Obviously, these people with high positions and power also knew that the situation was serious. They were deeply afraid that he would be affected, so they sent more people to protect him. Tang Zheng could clearly feel that there were already countless pairs of eyes spying on him in the dark. Perhaps if he did anything wrong, these people would rush out to deal with him. Tang Zheng smiled and didn't mind. He followed the two of them and easily arrived in front of the study. The chief was wearing a thin coat, standing in the courtyard outside the study with a serious expression. When he saw him come in, he gave him a deep look, and without saying a word, turned around and entered the study. Tang Zheng also walked in, and found that there were two other people in the study. These two people's auras were very strong, and were very similar to the two auras he had sensed in the dark before. These two people were probably Imperial Palace experts like Number 2. They had always been in hiding, but this time they actually stood in front of Tang Zheng openly. Chapter 879. Tang Zheng glanced at Number 1 and Number 3, completely unconcerned. He had no ill intentions towards the bureau chief, so why should he be afraid of them? The bureau chief's face darkened as he looked at Tang Zheng sternly and said, "Do you know what you've done?" Tang Zheng calmly accepted it and lightly said, "Could it be that you think that I was the one who started all of this?" The bureau chief was slightly startled. He didn't expect Tang Zheng to dare to refute him. This was a challenge to his authority. In that instant, his gaze became extremely sharp. The atmosphere in the study changed. Number 1, 2, and 3 all tensed up, as if they would take down Tang Zheng as soon as the bureau chief gave the order. The bureau chief didn't give the order in the end. He only stared at Tang Zheng sternly, as if trying to see through his thoughts. Tang Zheng was like a big ball of cotton, causing all the power he released to disappear. He helplessly snorted angrily and said, "What's with that roar?" Obviously, compared to other things, that dragon's roar was what he was most concerned about. Tang Zheng shook his head as usual and pretended not to know. He said, "I don't know. I guess it's the sound of some monster." "Humph, monster, what monster?" the bureau chief asked, unwilling to give up. Tang Zheng shrugged and said, "There are millions of monsters in the world. How can I recognize all of them? Moreover, it's just a sound, so I can't tell." The bureau chief looked at him suspiciously and suddenly said, "Someone said it's a dragon's roar. What do you think?" Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and pretended to be surprised. He asked, "Dragon's roar? Are there really dragons in this world?" He didn't seem to have any flaws, as if it was really the first time he heard of such a judgment. But his heart was beating like a drum. To be able to judge that it was a dragon's roar with just a roar, it seemed that the officials had many talents and guessed correctly. Number 2 also asked in surprise, "It's really a dragon's roar?" Obviously, it was also his first time hearing of such a judgment. Number 1 and Number 3 obviously knew about this beforehand. They glared at Number 2 fiercely, indicating for him to keep quiet. After Number 2's interruption, the bureau chief's aura weakened a little, but he still persisted in asking, "You don't think it's the dragon roar?" How would I know? Tang Jing shook his head without hesitation. Could it be that dragons really exist in this world? The bureau chief didn't find any flaws and couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. Tang Zheng was like an airtight wall. No matter how strong the wind was, it couldn't penetrate through. Tang Jing did not give up and asked, if there really are dragons in this world, it would be a huge discovery. Dragons are real. The bureau chief continued, this is clearly recorded in ancient documents, but it's very confidential and not known to outsiders. Tang Jing pretended to be enlightened. I see. That dragon roar came from the palace. Don't tell me you didn't discover anything else? Tang Jing shook his head. At that time, all I cared about was avoiding the explosion. I didn't even have time to run for my life. How could I have the time to care about other things? The bureau chief nodded to himself. That kind of powerful explosion was indeed too dangerous. What Tang Zheng said was not unreasonable. Then how did you manage to escape? Didn't I already say? Cultivators have their own life-saving methods. I'm very curious, so I want to listen and broaden my horizons. Tang Zheng's expression turned cold. I'm afraid I can't comply. If my life-saving methods are made public, how can I survive in the future? Not saying. Could it be that you want to go against us and are afraid that we will use this method to deal with you? Tang Zheng was stunned. This question was not easy to answer. The other party was obviously testing him. Since he had chosen to be tough, he couldn't compromise midway. Otherwise, he would be forced into a dead end by the other party. Tang Jing smiled faintly. Why would I go against you? However, in this world, one must always be vigilant against others. Moreover, there are too many people, and it's hard to avoid leaks. So, forgive me for not being able to comply. The other three instantly stared at Tang Zheng with unfriendly expressions, as if they couldn't wait to attack immediately. However, the bureau chief calmed down. He had already tested Tang Zheng's bottom line, so he didn't dare to take another step. Don't dare. When he thought of this word, he couldn't help but find it funny and sad. He was a superior above millions of people, but he had to care about the feelings of a young man. It was really ridiculous. Although he was helpless, he had to admit that this was the truth. Tang Zheng saw the intention to retreat from the bureau chief's eyes, and a trace of joy flashed through his heart. It seemed that his tenacious persistence was fruitful. I heard that you don't intend to bury the hatchet with the Rockefeller family? The bureau chief changed the question. Tang Jing sneered. Bury the hatchet, do you think it's possible? Why not? The Rockefeller family is a big family and knows how to weigh the pros and cons. As long as we come forward to mediate, they will definitely take a step back. There's no need to fight to the death. Young man, take a step back and you'll have a better view. Tang Jing shook his head without hesitation. It's none of my business. The Rockefeller family is not targeting you, so of course you can say that. Not only does he want to kill me, but he also wants to harm the people around me. This is my reverse scale. If anyone dares to touch it, I will definitely deal with him to the end and not let him have an easy time. After a slight pause, he emphasized his tone and repeated, anyone. Of course, this anyone was not limited to the Rockefeller family, but also included other people. The people in front of him were no exception. This was a resolute expression of his attitude. This kind of behavior was undoubtedly very provocative, especially for such a person with such a high position and power. The bureau chief's face changed instantly. It became gloomier and more serious. His sharp gaze was like a knife, about to pierce through Tang Zheng. But Tang Zheng did not retreat at all. After experiencing the Rockefeller family incident, he became cautious and wanted to strangle all possible dangers in the cradle. It didn't matter if they dealt with him, but if they dared to target the people around him, then he would definitely be angrier and fight to the death with them. The bureau chief understood the deep meaning in Tang Zheng's words. That was why he was so angry. He was threatening him to his face. He really wanted to flare up and have someone arrest Tang Zheng, but after all, he was not a 3-year-old child. He was very good at weighing the pros and cons. At this moment, having an enemy like Tang Zheng was definitely not a good thing for him. So, he took a few deep breaths and finally suppressed the anger in his heart. He looked at Tang Zheng and said, "Rockefeller is not so easy to deal with. If you cause such a big disturbance again, then I won't sit back and do nothing. That's not up to me. You know what kind of people the Rockefeller family is. Bats, werewolves, these guys will definitely cause panic when they appear in public. This is not something I can control. Actually, I have a very good suggestion. You find Rockefeller's people, and then I'll deal with them myself. It's better for everyone to end this matter early." Although Tang Zheng knew Rockefeller's hiding place from Li Xiaotian's mind, with such a big commotion in the imperial city this time, Rockefeller was not stupid. He must have moved long ago. If there was official assistance, it would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. These people who were hiding their heads and tails would definitely not be able to escape. However, the bureau chief shook his head firmly. No. Even though Tang Zheng felt a bit regretful, there was nothing he could do. He shrugged his shoulders and said, "Then I will dig 3 feet into the ground to find them. However, if the commotion is too big, then don't blame me." "Impudent!" Number 1 suddenly shouted, his eyes glaring angrily. The corners of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up in a cold smile. He met Number 1's eyes and said, "What do you want?" "Tang Zheng, are you still from Huaxia? How dare you be so rude to the bureau chief?" Number 1 scolded. Tang Zheng laughed loudly. "If I'm not from Huaxia, why would I be standing here? When my life and the lives of my family were threatened, where were you? Now you're here to question whether I'm from Huaxia. What right do you have? Or, let me ask you bluntly, who do you think you are?" This attitude was undoubtedly arrogant to the extreme, as if he was scolding the locust tree. But what he said was not without reason. Tang Zheng was a young man, so he had the hot-bloodedness of a young man. If he acted like an old and wise person in everything, then there would be a problem. Tang Zheng had experienced so many big and small battles, so the hot-bloodedness in his bones was very strong. It was just that he had been deliberately suppressing it. Now that it was stimulated by Number 1's questioning, the atmosphere became very tense, as if both sides could start fighting at any time. Number 1's face turned red from the questioning, and he muttered, "The country has its own considerations. How can you sacrifice the interests of the whole for your own personal interests? I don't care about the interests of the whole, I only care about myself. Only when I'm not threatened can I care about others. Moreover, without an individual, how can there be a whole?" Tang Zheng was very eloquent and was not something a martial artist like Number 1 could compare to. For a moment, Number 1 was refuted until he was speechless. The bureau chief's expression was uncertain, and he kept staring at Tang Zheng. Seeing Tang Zheng's hot-bloodedness, he was not surprised. The so-called hot-bloodedness, to him, was just the impulsiveness of a young and ignorant person. If a young man was too mature and wise, and too shrewd, this was what he was most afraid of. Looking at the impulsive Tang Zheng, he felt a sense of relief. Young people. There was a limit to their shrewdness, so they were easy to deal with. For a moment, he could not help but feel relieved. He threw this conflict to the back of his mind and waved his hand, indicating that the two of them should stop talking. After this incident, he believed Tang Zheng's words a little more. After all, the dragon was a legendary existence. How could Tang Zheng have the ability to meet a dragon? Moreover, if he really met a dragon, could he still survive? Dragons were noble and mysterious, but it was said that they were violent by nature. Tang Zheng did not have the ability to make a dragon treat him differently. After thinking through all this, the bureau chief's expression turned from dark to bright, and a smile appeared on his lips. He softened his tone and said, "After all, Rockefeller is closely related to the Atlantic Empire. The government will not step in. This will cause more conflict. As for you, we can't do anything about it." Chapter 880. Hearing this, Tang Zhang was actually very happy. If the officials did not interfere, this would be the most beneficial situation for him. Thank you very much. However, in the end, this matter was started by the Azure Dragon Palace, so the officials should deal with the Azure Dragon Palace even more. Tang Zhang took the initiative to mention the Azure Dragon Palace to test the other party's reaction. The bureau chief avoided talking about it and waved his hand. The Azure Dragon Palace is too mysterious, we can't find it either. Your family has experienced such a thing, you should go back and comfort your family first. Tang Zhang's heart skipped a beat. The bureau chief's reaction was out of his expectations. He took the initiative to mention the Azure Dragon Palace, but the other party avoided talking about it, as if there was some secret behind it. Could it be the other party had some sort of relationship with the Azure Dragon Palace? But why didn't the information in Li Xiaotian's mind mention this? The Azure Dragon Palace seemed to have always been an independent existence and had never been involved in the matters of the imperial court. Logically speaking, the Azure Dragon Palace shouldn't have anything to do with the other party. Tang Zhang secretly shook his head. There must be some unknown secret behind this, and he had no way of knowing it for the time being. He bid farewell and left, only to discover that the sky had turned white. After this night of torment, the capital would definitely be very lively today. After Tang Zhang left, Number 1 could not hide his anger as he said, Bureau Chief, Tang Zhang is too arrogant, challenging authority, this kind of person cannot stay for long. The bureau chief smiled confidently, although he challenges authority, he is also a useful chess piece. As long as he is used properly, he will be able to unleash a great deal of power. Moreover, he has the Empyrean Fairy, Tian Chanzi, and the Yen family behind him. If we touch him, it will affect the whole body, and the gains will not make up for the losses. Bureau chief is wise. It was my fault for not thinking it through. Bureau chief, this time, Yen Potion's attitude is very unyielding. It seems that he has sworn to stand together with Tang Zhang. This is not a good sign. Number 2 recalled Yen Potion's attitude from before and said thoughtfully. A glint flashed across the bureau chief's eyes as he said, the Yen family is arrogant. Now that the other two families have fallen, the Yen family is in the limelight. However, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Isn't there still the Ye family in the capital? We must support the Ye family. We must not let the Yen family dominate the family. Understood. Even in his dreams, Yi Xuanji would never have thought that such a good thing would fall on his head. Originally, he was just hiding like a turtle, waiting for an opportunity to make his move. With the support of the government, it was foreseeable that the Ye family would develop rapidly in the near future. Chief, do you think Tang Zhang really doesn't know about dragons? Although his cultivation level is high, he's still a young man after all. He can't keep his cool and is easily impulsive. We've tested him many times, but he didn't show any flaws. It seems like he really doesn't know, the bureau chief said after a moment of silence. If Tang Zhang were to hear this, he would definitely be very happy. He had worked so hard to put on an act and finally managed to deceive everyone. But dragons are legendary existences. Where are we going to find them? That dragon's roar came from the ruins. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, you must find the dragon for me. Yes. When Tang Zhang returned home, the sky was already bright. However, he suddenly discovered that there were traces of battle in front of the villa. He turned pale with fright. Could it be that this place was also attacked? He hurriedly rushed into the house, only to find that everyone was sitting in the living room, safe and sound. When they saw that he had returned, everyone stood up one after another. Are you okay? Faced with all the greetings, Tang Zhang revealed a trace of a warm smile and said, I'm okay? That's good. I thought they were really going to do something to you. Humph, if they really dared to do that, Lan Yu, will fight them to the end even if it means risking my life. Lan Yu was like a tigress, protecting the tiger cub Tang Zhang. What happened outside? Tang Zhang pointed outside the house and asked. Someone came to attack us last night, but we've already beaten them back. Tang Zheng was overwhelmed with shock. Fortunately, he had left the Empyrean ferry behind. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy for others. Rockefeller's people? No, Island Nation's people. Island Nation's people? Tang Zheng was shocked. Weren't the people of the Island Nation close to the Hundred Faces Star Lord? Could it be that the Hundred Faces Star Lord had also come to the capital? However, if there was a Hundred Faces Star Lord in the attack last night, then the battlefield would definitely not be like this. What about the people of the Island Nation? There were a lot of casualties, and then they fled. We were worried that there would be an ambush, so we did not chase after them. However, it was a woman who led the team. Fang Shishir said. It's Junko. Wu said. She had seen Junko in the Island Nation before, so she was naturally familiar with her. Tang Zheng was shocked. Junko of the Imperial Preceptor's mansion. The Imperial Preceptor was dead, but she was still alive. It seemed that she had inherited the Imperial Preceptor's mansion. This time, his enemies were here, the Imperial Preceptor's mansion and the Rockefeller family. Without a doubt, these two groups of unrelated people gathered together because of the Azure Dragon Palace's conspiracy. Moreover, the information obtained from Li Xiaotian also confirmed this point. Where's Junko? Did you catch her? No, this woman is too cunning. She escaped. Tang Zheng looked at the Empyrean ferry and asked, did the Hundred Faces Star Lord come? The Empyrean fairy shook her head. He didn't come, but the strength of these people last night is not to be underestimated, especially that Junko. She is actually in the Master Realm and knows some strange spells. Master Realm? Tang Zheng was shocked. He still remembered that Junko was only in the innate realm, but she reached the Master Realm in such a short time. He was afraid that only the Hundred Faces Star Lord could do this. I was right, this group of people from the Island Nation really can't be separated from the Hundred Faces Star Lord. As for the spells she knew, ninjutsu was originally a branch of spells. It was very shallow, but with the Hundred Faces Star Lord, all of this would naturally change, so it was not surprising that Junko knew some strange spells. In fact, there was a big difference between the ninjas of the Island Nation and the traditional martial artists. Ninjutsu was a deformed existence that combined martial arts and spells. If one practiced ninjutsu, they would not be able to reach the peak of martial arts or spells, and would be greatly restricted. This was why the Island Nation gathered the strength of the whole country, but after all, there were not many ninjutsu masters. There was no other way, the route was restricted. However, this also led to an advantage, that was, they could not only practice martial arts but also some shallow spells. It could be imagined that the person who created the ninjutsu back then was also a genius. However, with the Hundred Faces Star Lord, this situation would definitely be broken. He would teach these people authentic spells, so they would gradually abandon their identity as martial artists and turn into cultivators. However, there was still a problem with the foundation of these people, so even if they cultivated authentic spells, it would be impossible for them to achieve much, unless their talent was extremely outstanding. As long as everyone is fine, it's fine. It seems that we have another mission this time. Not only do we have to find Rockefeller, we also have to find this group of Island Nation monkeys. Tang Zheng said. Yen Padian patted his chest, and said confidently, Tang Zheng, don't worry, our people have already spread out, and even if we want to find a needle in a haystack, I will still fish them out, not to mention that they are not even needles. The most important thing is to prevent them from escaping. Since they have barged in, then we must close the door and beat the dog, catching a turtle in a jar. We definitely cannot let them escape. Tang Zheng said as he clenched his fists. Don't worry, even if I have to risk my life, I won't let them succeed. Although Yen Padian had experienced an entire night of turmoil, his face was flushed red, as if he had regained his youth. He was extremely excited. Obviously, this was the after effect of seeing the five-clawed golden dragon. Tang Zheng saw Yan Qingyi in the crowd and was surprised that she was here. He nodded slightly at her. Yan Qingyi nodded in return and asked the question in everyone's heart, Tang Zheng, how did you come back from the dead? Seeing that everyone was looking at him curiously, Tang Zheng laughed and said, "I didn't come back from the dead, I just entered a state of near death. Fortunately, Xiaobai helped me and gave me a pill, so I was pulled back from the gates of hell and caught them off guard." Only then did everyone pat their chests. So that was how it was. If a person really came back from the dead, that would be too inconceivable. Yan Qingyi's face reddened. She had predicted that Tang Zheng was dead and then came back to life. She was completely wrong. What he saw in his prophecy was only a picture, so he did not know all the information. Naturally, there would be discrepancies in his deductions. But even so, everyone was still afraid. After walking through the gates of hell, if they were the slightest bit careless and made a mistake, then it was really possible for them to step into the gates of hell and never return. When Mu Hongyan thought about it, she felt a lingering fear in her heart, but she was also incomparably moved. Although Tang Zheng did not really commit suicide, such an action still made her extremely grateful. "Tang Zheng, thank you." In her excitement, she actually threw herself into Tang Zheng's embrace without hesitation and hugged him tightly. Ugh! Everyone fell into silence as they watched all of this with their mouths agape. Mu Hongyan was not a young girl like Fang Shishir, so such an action was somewhat unexpected and even out of line. But at this time, no one raised any objections. Tang Zheng was suddenly startled and somewhat embarrassed. His mind could not help but recall the bits and pieces of the past with Mu Hongyan. Her mature body was completely different from Fang Shishir and the others. She was like a ripe peach that could drip water with a light pinch. Just a little contact and feeling the amazing elasticity under her clothes could make one's imagination run wild. Mu Hongyan felt the warmth of his embrace and her heart beat rapidly like a little girl in love for the first time. There was a feeling of butterflies in her stomach. Her face suddenly turned red, and she shyly thought, "Why am I like this? I am not a little girl anymore." Only then did she realize how abrupt her action was. Everyone must be looking at her. However, how good would it be if she could always lean in this warm and broad embrace? To have such a person accompany and protect her, for any woman, it would be the greatest happiness in her life. Why would I think about this? I am a few years older than him, and I am also the mother of his child. How can I let my imagination run wild, shameless? She fiercely criticized herself in her heart and quickly let go of Tang Zheng. She pretended to be calm and said, "Tang Zheng, thank you for risking your life to save me." Chapter 881. Yan Padian and Yan Qingyi bid farewell and left to search for the whereabouts of Rockefeller and the people of the island nation. Tang Zheng returned to his room alone to rest. The others had been in a state of fear for the entire night. In addition, they had gone through a great battle. They were all exhausted and returned to their rooms to rest. Yi Dingdang did not go home, but chose a room to stay in. Therefore, even though the sky was already bright, the villa was still quiet. Mu Hongyan sat in front of the dressing table and looked at herself in the mirror. When she recalled the scene just now, her cheeks couldn't help but turn pink, like a shy young girl. No one has ever been willing to sacrifice their life for me. Even Nana's father was unable to do this back then. Could it be that Tang Zheng has some thoughts about me? When she thought of this, she was actually not angry. She was only a little flustered and at a loss. I'm no longer a little girl. I'm already old, how can I compare to a young girl? She looked at herself in the mirror. In fact, she was still as beautiful as ever. Her skin was as white as snow, and her mature charm was unstoppable. What am I thinking about? I really don't know shame. She rubbed her cheeks and suppressed the charming thoughts in her heart. She took a deep breath and barely managed to regain her composure. Tang Zheng didn't even eat breakfast before going to rest. It's not good for his health. Moreover, after a great battle, he consumed a lot of energy. I'll go make some food for him. She went to the kitchen, cooked a bowl of fragrant noodles, and brought it to Tang Zheng's door. All the girls lived upstairs, and only Tang Zheng lived alone on the first floor. Therefore, no one else noticed what she had done. Standing in front of Tang Zhang's door, she couldn't help but feel a little flustered. She patted her chest a few times to indicate that she had calmed down, and then gently knocked on the door. "Who is it?" Tang Zhang's voice immediately sounded. It was obvious that he had not fallen asleep yet. "It's me. Can I come in?" "Come in." She opened the door and walked in. She saw Tang Zhang bare-chested and wearing shorts. Tang Zhang's figure was very good, and his 8-pack abs were very eye-catching. Although Mu Hongyan was experienced, seeing this body made her heart beat faster. She quickly concealed her inner thoughts and looked straight ahead. She didn't dare to look at Tang Zhang any longer. "I've cooked a bowl of noodles for you. Eat it while it's still hot, and then rest. You must be exhausted after such a long day." Tang Zhang was slightly stunned. He didn't expect her to be so thoughtful. He smiled. "Sister Mu, you are too polite. My body is very good. I won't be hungry if I don't eat." Mu Hongyan said seriously, "Although you're young, you can't be so careless with your health. Humans are made of iron and steel. If you don't eat a meal, you'll be hungry. I'm not as capable as them, so I can only cook for you." Tang Zhang's smile suddenly froze. That last sentence was too misleading. She was going to let him eat the noodles. Why am I so dirty? Tang Zhang complained to himself. He quickly got rid of these messy thoughts. Seeing his reaction, the smart Mu Hongyan immediately realized the ambiguity in her words. Her heart was anxious and embarrassed. How could I say such shameless words? Looking at his appearance, he must have misunderstood. Then what will he think of me? In a moment of desperation, her hand slightly trembled and the bowl fell from her hand. Tang Zhang's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He immediately reacted and his figure flashed in front of her. His big hand reached out and caught the bowl. Mu Hongyan was in a daze. She only felt a strong masculine aura hit her in the face. Tang Zhang's bare upper body was just inches away, creating a strong visual impact for her. Her breathing suddenly became rapid. Her cheeks were as red as an apple and her eyes were blurred. Mu Hongyan was nearly 30 years old. It was the age of tigers and wolves. She had not come into contact with a man for so many years. Tang Zhang was so outstanding. In this kind of environment, he instantly firmly attracted all of her attention. All kinds of thoughts that were originally suppressed came flooding in like a tide. She unexpectedly reached out her hand and pressed it on Tang Zhang's chest. Tang Zhang was suddenly startled. Like a sculpture, he did not move. He held the bowl in one hand and stopped in mid-air with the other hand, not knowing what to do. He looked at Mu Hongyan with a complicated gaze. Seeing her reaction, his heart swayed. A woman was most beautiful when she was in love. Without a doubt, Mu Hongyan was in love now. That flirtatious appearance was like a fire seed that fell into Tang Zhang's body. His current cultivation was profound. Without a doubt, his pure yang energy had been accumulating. Moreover, because of Lan Yu's arrival, he did not dare to casually sneak into anyone's room at home. Therefore, during this period of time, his pure yang energy was only accumulating. Without the harmony of yin and yang, it had long become restless. Without a doubt, Mu Hongyan's fire seed ignited the pure yang energy in his body, causing him to become restless. Mu Hongyan's hand came into close contact with Tang Zhang's skin. She could not help but feel an electric shock. This was a feeling she had not felt for many years. Her eyes were blurred, her eyes were wandering, and her breath was like orchids. She could not help but think of the scene of Tang Zhang saving her without hesitation. Her heart softened again. If a woman had such a man to protect her, what else could she ask for? Career, power, money? She did not want any of them. She only wanted such a man, such strong shoulders, broad chest, and warm embrace. She was in a daze and actually rushed forward to hug Tang Zhang. That warm embrace gave her a sense of security that was particularly intoxicating. Although she had a high position and was a strong woman, she had not felt safe for many years. Ever since Tang Jing appeared and saved Nana, her life gradually became safe. No matter what she was worried about, as long as she saw Tang Jing, she would feel exceptionally safe. No matter what difficulties she faced, Tang Jing would solve them. When she was captured by Rockefeller, she could not get rid of Tang Jing's figure in her mind. She had a faint expectation that Tang Jing would definitely come to save her. Later, her dream came true. Tang Jing really did come to save her, and in a tragic way, he sacrificed his own life. At that time, she was completely moved. At that moment, she was completely captivated by Tang Jing. At this moment, hugging Tang Jing and feeling the warmth from his chest and his strong heartbeat, she finally understood her thoughts. Her heart no longer belonged to herself, because it was filled with Tang Jing. Being hugged by such a hot woman, Tang Jing could not bear it. With a wave of his hand, the bowl flew steadily to the table next to him, and he carefully hugged her with both hands. Feeling the response of Tang Jing's hands, Mu Hongyan's dry heart seemed to be injected with rain, and her body and soul were full. Her body gradually heated up, and she hugged Tang Jing tighter with both hands. Reluctant to let go, she said as if in a dream, "Tang Jing, in order to save me, you did not hesitate to sacrifice yourself." I. For a moment, thousands of words came to her mind, but she did not know where to start. There was a voice in Tang Jing's heart that shouted loudly, "I want her." His hand could not help but support her waist. Her waist was very thin, soft, and amazingly elastic. Mu Hongyan's hand rubbed Tang Jing's back, which aroused the fire in Tang Jing's head. He lowered his head and kissed her red lips. Like dry wood meeting a raging fire, the two of them were burning. Mu Hongyan had her own unique advantages. Like a ripe peach, she could especially tease men's heartstrings. Tang Jing was no exception. In the face of such temptation, he could not resist at all. Mu Hongyan's kiss was very intense. It was completely different from Fang Shishir and the others. It was as if she could mobilize every cell in Tang Jing's body and stimulate every nerve in his body. After a long drought, her heart and body eagerly hoped to be nourished by Tang Jing. Tang Jing's pure yang energy completely broke out. The strong masculine aura intoxicated her, and their hands were not willing to give up on the status quo. Tang Jing's hand had already drilled into her clothes. In the summer, she wore cool clothes. Mu Hongyan felt her whole body stiffen. Two big hands had already invaded her body. Usually, when she walked on the street, she was very disgusted by the aggressive and hot eyes of other men. But for Tang Jing, she only liked him. She also had a faint expectation that he would be more intense. Tang Jing was preparing to attack the city and take over the land. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. "Tang Jing, I have something to talk to you about." It was the Empyrean fairy's voice. As if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads, the two of them calmed down in an instant. They looked at each other and were very flustered. Mu Hongyan released him as if she had been electrocuted. Tang Jing's hand also reluctantly withdrew. Looking at the red face of Mu Hongyan, the fire in his heart kept burning. He gritted his teeth hatefully. Why was the Empyrean fairy so annoying? It was wrong to disturb someone else's good time. Mu Hongyan's heart still had a lingering fear. There were other people in the house, and one of them was Tang Jing's official girlfriend. If she was caught doing this, how could she face them? How could she face others? She quickly tidied up her clothes and adjusted her breathing. However, the deep affection in her eyes could not be concealed. Bang! The Empyrean fairy seemed to be impatient and directly opened the door and walked in. Why are you here?" The Empyrean fairy looked at Mu Hongyan suspiciously. Mu Hongyan felt guilty and did not dare to look at the Empyrean fairy. She was afraid that she would find out something was wrong. She lowered her head and said, "I cooked a bowl of noodles for him. Tang Jing, after you eat, just bring the bowl to the kitchen." After saying that, she hurriedly walked out without looking back. The fairy of the 9 heavens looked at her back with suspicion, as if she was deep in thought. Tang Jing quickly diverted her attention and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" "I forgot to ask you just now. What is the deal with Yan Qingyi's prophecy technique?" Last night, she had a long talk with Yan Qingyi. Yan Qingyi had told her about the prophecy technique. However, the Empyrean fairy was not satisfied. She thought that Yan Qingyi was still hiding something, so she wanted to get more information from Tang Jing. The flame on Tang Jing's head was still burning. Mu Hongyan had slipped away. She only cared about killing and not burying. This made him suffer. Seeing the Empyrean fairy staring at him, he knew that he could not easily send her away. Otherwise, she would definitely make wild guesses and perhaps discover the truth. He picked up the noodles and ate while absent-mindedly dealing with the Empyrean fairy. Mu Hongyan ran back to the room. She leaned against the door and felt weak all over. She could barely stand. Chapter 882. Tang Jing didn't know what happened after Mu Hongyan returned to her room. He was busy dealing with the Empyrean fairy. She was extremely interested in prophecy and kept on asking him questions. Tang Jing actually didn't know much about prophecy. He gave a general explanation, but it was all from what Yan Qingyi had told the Empyrean fairy. She didn't get anything and was very unwilling to give up. She stared straight at Tang Jing, as if trying to see through the truth in his words. Tang Jing had no choice but to spread his hands. "That's all I know. She said you were the savior in her prophecy. She should be wrong. Her latest prophecy has already refuted this point of view. I'm not some savior. In any case, you played a big role in it. And from her description, it seems that the prophecy happened at Mount Buzhou." Tang Jing nodded. There was no need to hide this. He said openly, "Didn't you also go to Mount Buzhou to take a look? Did you find anything new with her prophecy?" "I'll investigate it myself," the Empyrean fairy said. Apparently, she didn't find anything new for the time being. "Alright, I've finished my noodles, so I'm going to rest." Tang Jing carried the bowl into the kitchen, leaving the mysterious maiden of the 9 heavens to return to her room in deep thought. Tang Jing returned to his room and lay down. His heart was 9, but the flames in his heart were still restless. He looked down and found that a tent had already been set up. This won't do. I'll be finished if this kind of pure yang energy erupts. Moreover, it's at such a critical time. If the pure yang energy erupts during a battle, then I won't be able to keep my life. He got out of bed and tiptoed to the 2nd floor. Just as he was about to sneak into Mu Hongyan's room, Yi Dingdang suddenly opened the door and walked out. "Oh no." Tang Jing cried out inwardly, but there was no way he could retreat. He could only brace himself and ask, "Why aren't you resting?" "I'm not used to a new bed." "What are you doing?" Of course, Tang Jing did not dare to say that he was looking for Mu Hongyan. He had an idea and took advantage of the situation to pull Yi Dingdang into the room. He closed the door and said, "I missed you, so I came to look for you." Sweet talk. That being said, Yi Dingdang was obviously very happy. "Humph, you were still very introverted in high school. Why are you getting more and more thick-skinned now?" Tang Jing chuckled. "Did he say so? Why didn't I notice?" As he spoke, he reached out and hugged Yi Dingdang. "Hey, what are you doing?" Yi Dingdang felt as if she had been electrocuted. She quickly dodged, but she couldn't escape from Tang Jing's evil claws. She was tightly held in his arms. "Why is your body so hot?" Yi Dingdang suddenly asked. "I missed you." Tang Jing could no longer hold back the restless pure yang energy. His large hands began to misbehave. "Don't." Yi Dingdang's body stiffened. "There are so many people in the house. They will hear us." This was Yi Dingdang's first time living in Tang Jing's house. She never thought that she would encounter such a situation. Of course, she couldn't help but panic. Tang Jing gently comforted her. "Don't worry, the sound insulation is very good. They won't be able to hear us." "Do you usually do this kind of bad thing at home?" Aren't you afraid that others will find out? Yi Dingdang suddenly asked. Tang Jing couldn't help but sigh. This woman's brain circuit was really different. She could even think of this kind of question at this time. How could that be? Tang Jing said without blinking. He decided not to give her a chance to speak. He leaned over and kissed her. Yi Dingdang tenderly cried out and could no longer say a word. In fact, after experiencing yesterday's incident, she was also a little scared. She just didn't show it. Now that she was alone with Tang Jing and fell into his passionate kiss, her emotions erupted like a flash flood. After a brief resistance, she devoted herself wholeheartedly and passionately responded to his demands. The two quickly fell on the bed and rolled into a ball, entangled together. This time, Yi Dingdang clearly felt a hot qi enter her body and wander through her meridians. Tang Jing also felt a cool pure yin energy enter his body and gradually neutralized the restless pure yang energy. Finally, it turned into qi and gathered in his dantian. Yi Dingdang had been deliberately suppressing her voice, but in the end, Tang Jing's strength was too great. She had no choice but to let go of her body and mind to cooperate with him. Fortunately, the room's sound insulation was good. Otherwise, everyone would have heard this beautiful and moving sound. In the afternoon, when Tang Jing woke up, there was no beauty beside him. This was because he had been driven out by Yi Dingdang and had to return to his room. The two were affectionate for a long time. Tang Jing's pure yang energy was finally appeased. The qi in his body increased a little. When will these sneaky days come to an end? He sighed. However, even though he said so, he didn't dare to really publicize such a chaotic relationship. If he did, he was afraid that he wouldn't even have the opportunity to sneak around. He opened the door and walked out, only to find that everyone was gathered together. However, there were two more people in the living room. One was sitting, and the other was standing like a puppet. Hey, Tian Chanzi, why are you here? Tang Jing asked curiously. His gaze involuntarily fell on the standing person. Huang Xiang. This was once a hedonistic young master. However, in the end, he was taken in as a puppet by Tian Chanzi. He also followed Tang Jing for a period of time, but was later taken back by Tian Chanzi. He had always been puzzled as to what Tian Chanzi did with him. He didn't expect that he would be brought back today. Moreover, Tang Jing clearly felt that the yin energy on his body was dense. It was almost the same as the people in the ghost realm. This was the dog days of June, but just by standing there, he was better than the air conditioning. Almost the entire hall's temperature dropped by several degrees, making people feel cold. Seeing Tang Jing look at Huang Xiang, Tian Chanzi laughed. He waved at Tang Jing and pointed at Huang Xiang. He said proudly, Tang Jing, look at my results. Tang Jing suspiciously stared at Huang Xiang and said, his strength has increased a lot. Huh, it's more than a lot. He's almost at the peak. Do you know? This is the advantage of being a puppet. His cultivation speed is amazingly fast. I think he's not much worse than you. Do you know what his current strength is equivalent to? The other party's yin energy was too heavy. He didn't have the conventional cultivation level. He could only rely on his combat ability to judge. Therefore, Tang Jing couldn't tell. He shook his head and said he didn't know. Tian Chanzi seemed to have known his answer. He said proudly, Golden Core 9th grade. It's higher than your Golden Core 7th grade. Hee, are you jealous? What, Golden Core 9th grade? Tang Jing was shocked. This was really beyond his expectations. One must know that Tang Jing's cultivation speed was already heaven-defying, but Huang Xiang was even more heaven-defying than him. I found him an excellent yin place, surrounded by 100 ghosts, and not a single blade of grass grew. If an ordinary person were to go there, they would probably be scared to death. He has been silently cultivating there, and in the end, all the ghosts were absorbed by him, which is why he has reached such a level of cultivation. Furthermore, he is invulnerable, and has an indestructible body, which is similar to your primal chaos Vajra spell. Tian Chanzi was like a child showing off his toy, looking like he deserved a beating. The others were also shocked, especially Yi Dingdang. He had seen Huang Xiang before, but he never thought that his cultivation would be so powerful. After Tang Jing recovered from his shock, he was not envious, and said, after all, he doesn't have his own consciousness, and is a puppet, just like a dead object. No matter how high his cultivation is, no matter how fast his speed is, why would I be envious? This was the truth. If he lost his consciousness and only pursued the increase of his strength, then he would be neglecting the essentials. Therefore, this was the power of a celestial walker. Under normal circumstances, his cultivation would increase at a godly speed. How could a puppet be compared to a celestial walker? Seeing that he did not hit Tang Zheng, Tian Chanzi was extremely disappointed, and said unwillingly, "Your mentality is really getting better and better, no wonder you don't have any inner demons. I don't know where you got such dog's hit luck, how could you not have any inner demons for no reason?" Tang Zheng had never told anyone about the matter of the Langya Pavilion. This was one of his biggest secrets, so of course he could not easily show it to others, so they did not know that he had used the exorcist mirror to do this. Tang Jing smiled faintly, "Maybe this is because I'm handsome." Tian Chanzi was so angry that he glared at him fiercely and muttered, "Can handsomeness be eaten?" After a pause, he waved his hand at Fang Shishir, and Fang Shishir came in front of him. Tian Chanzi smiled with gratification, "Good disciple, you have become my disciple, but I haven't given you a gift. That little brat has made fun of me many times, saying that I am stingy. How could he know my thoughts? How could I be stingy with my own disciple? Here, I brought you a gift today." After saying this, he pointed at Huang Xiang. Everyone was stunned. He actually wanted to give a 9th grade golden core Huang Xiang to Fang Shishir. "Your cultivation is still too weak, so you will always be at a disadvantage when you meet enemies. Therefore, with him protecting you, normal people will definitely not be able to harm you in the future. Disciple, do you think this gift of mine is good?" Tian Chanzi looked at Fang Shishir with shining eyes, as if he was waiting for the word "good" from her mouth. Fang Shishir was stunned. She never thought that she would have such a powerful puppet to protect her, and for a moment, she was at a loss. However, when she looked at the gloomy Huang Xiang, her heart suddenly jumped, and she was somewhat unwilling to accept this gift. After all, girls liked beautiful things, and Huang Xiang really couldn't be considered beautiful. Tian Chanzi was stunned, and suspiciously asked, "You don't want it?" "Master, senior sister doesn't want it, but I want it." Princess Anne said without any disdain. Obviously, she was very clear about the value of such a puppet. Although it looked gloomy, it was powerful, and this temptation was not small. Tian Chanzi turned a deaf ear, as if he didn't even consider Princess Anne. They were the same master, but the difference in treatment was too big. The princess was very hurt. "Master, this..." Fang Shishir hesitated. Tang Zheng was very clear about the use of Huang Xiang, and quickly said, "Hee, Tian Chanzi, you are finally generous for once. Shishir, quickly thank your master." "Oh." When Fang Shishir heard Tang Zheng say this, she swallowed back the words of refusal, and reluctantly squeezed out a smile, and reluctantly said, "Thank you, master." Tian Chanzi wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Was there a master as miserable as him? He had carefully prepared this gift for so long, but his disciple didn't accept it, and even needed Tang Zheng to say good words for him, before reluctantly accepting it. Chapter 883. Fang Shishir reluctantly accepted this special gift. Tian Chanzi also told her how to control Huang Xiang. And was envious. This master was really biased. However, she didn't dare to be angry. Instead, she smiled and asked, "Master, do I have a gift?" Tian Chanzi awkwardly coughed and said, "Master hasn't thought of what to give you yet. When the time comes, I will naturally give it to you." He accepted Princess Anne's crystal. Of course, he couldn't go back on his word. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed for being biased. and was very disappointed and unhappy. Good disciple, master will definitely find a very good gift for you. That's right, does your father have any more crystals? Tian Chanzi tested the crystal and experienced the magic of the crystal, so he wanted a few more. Princess An hesitated and said, Father said that he doesn't have any more. AI, that's a pity. Tian Chanzi sighed. Although he said that, he didn't believe that she didn't have any more. This kind of crystal was a foreign object. It couldn't be that there were only 2 of them. The other side must have hidden it, but he was too embarrassed to ask for it. After all, he was still An's master. He had to maintain a little of his master's image. 7 Tian Chanzi didn't want to continue the topic of gifts. He quickly changed the topic and said, Tang Zheng, this time Rockefeller and the island nation came to find trouble with you. Do you need my help? Tang Zheng thought about the power of the ancestor. He nodded and said, It's best if you stay and help. I guess there should be news in a day or 2. This group of people are like turtles shrinking their heads. But the capital is already like an iron can. They can't escape. Tian Chanzi didn't put Rockefeller in his eyes. He disdainfully curled his lips, a group of filthy things that can't enter the hall of elegance. Don't put them in your heart. However, I heard that you captured that girl, Li Xiaotian. You should have used the soul-searching technique to find out about the Azure Dragon Palace Hall, right? Tang Zheng had already sorted out the information earlier. He nodded and said, Of course, we've gained a lot this time. I was just about to tell everyone about it. The Azure Dragon Hall is extremely mysterious, and we already know its exact location. Therefore, when the matters in the capital are settled, we will immediately go to the Azure Dragon Hall. This organization has been hiding mysteriously for so many years, and it is finally time to uncover its mysterious veil and expose it to the light of day. Hearing this, Tian Chanzi said excitedly, I've always wanted to meet the Azure Dragon Palace, but these guys are like rats, hiding in the dark corners and never showing themselves. I'm also helpless. After a slight pause, he asked again, other than the address of the Azure Dragon Hall, what else is there? Li Xiaotian knows a lot of things about the Azure Dragon Hall, but she still doesn't know the true core. For example, the High Lord's true appearance, because he has always been wearing a mask. However, there is one thing that we didn't expect. The Azure Dragon Hall is divided into 3 groups. One group is the Martial Organization, Li Palace, and Sword Pavilion. The other group is the Flying Guillotine. This is an extremely powerful group of assassins, and we have already seen them in the 100,000 Mountains. At that time, we killed the Flying Guillotines group and almost wiped out the majority of them. I thought that the Flying Guillotine was almost completely destroyed by us, but now I understand that my thinking was too simple. How is it too simple? Not only Tian Chanzi, but even the Empyrean fairy pricked up her ears. The Flying Guillotine's numbers are far more than that. That is only a part of it. In other words, we haven't destroyed the Flying Guillotine's core. Tang Zheng said in a heavy tone. Those are all martial scholars. Could it be that the Azure Dragon Hall has nurtured so many martial scholars? Tian Chanzi was extremely shocked. He now understood the original composition of this world. There shouldn't be so many martial scholars. That is the truth. Li Xiaotian's information confirmed this point. As for how many members there are in the Flying Guillotine, even Li Xiaotian doesn't know. Tian Chanzi's thick eyebrows twitched, and said, This Azure Dragon Hall is really powerful. Just what kind of person was Nu Bara, who created the Azure Dragon Hall? Tang Zheng also couldn't imagine it. However, since the other party was able to expel all the cultivators in this world, it was enough to show how powerful he was. Then what about the third group? Empyrean Fairy asked. The third group is the Azure Dragon Hall's consecrators. Actually, we have already seen them. The fair-faced flying dragon is one of them. Right now, the Azure Dragon Hall has a total of 3 great consecrators. Other than the fair-faced flying dragon, there is also the Elder Angler. The last one is very mysterious. It is said that she is a woman. Even Li Xiaotian has never seen her before. These consecrators are very powerful. Among them, the fair-faced flying dragon's cultivation is the weakest. However, you have already seen it. He is already a martial king. Tang Jing spoke tirelessly. His heart was also stirred up. The layers of mysteries of the Azure Dragon Hall were unveiled. What was revealed was a truth that shocked even Tang Jing. Tian Chanzi's eyes flickered with an ominous glint, and said, "Since the Azure Dragon Hall is so mysterious and powerful, then we cannot just sit and wait for death. This time, we must take the initiative to attack and give the other party a fatal blow." Tang Jing nodded his head in agreement. This was also his point of view. If the other party received the news and escaped, then they would not be able to find him in this boundless land. Therefore, you did the right thing. You must not let that girl surnamed Li go back and spread the news. In order to avoid future troubles, we must get rid of her now. Tian Chanzi said decisively. With a thought from Tang Jing, Li Xiaotian flew out from Sumeru World and lay on the sofa motionless. Tang Jing looked around and discovered that everyone was curiously looking at Li Xiaotian. Even Nana was no exception. Nana was ignorant and asked curiously, "Is Sister Li asleep?" She had seen Li Xiaotian before and had a deep impression of him. Tang Jing's heart moved. The child was here, so he naturally could not kill her at home and dirty the house. Thus, he smiled at Nana and said, "Nana, go back to your room and play." "Oh." Nana stared suspiciously and returned to her room under the guidance of Mu Hongyan. Tang Jing looked at everyone and said, "I will take her out first." Marshall hated Li Xiaotian to the bone and said, "You must kill her. You cannot let her harm others." Regarding Li Xiaotian's various actions, Marshall had long been unable to suppress her anger and killing intent. This vicious woman had almost caused her to lose two of her most important people. How could she forgive her? Tang Jing nodded and carried Li Xiaotian out of the villa and walked straight into a nearby forest. Looking at her beautiful face, Tang Jing sighed. "In your next life, be a good person. Don't be so scheming and have a heart as poisonous as snakes and scorpions." Tang Jing was about to put her down when he discovered that she was slowly opening her eyes and waking up. Tang Jing's heart trembled and he subconsciously let go of her hand. Bang! Li Xiaotian came into close contact with the ground. She cried out, "It hurts, it hurts." Tears actually flowed out of her eyes as she cried like a pear blossom in the rain. Tang Jing was shocked as he looked at her in disbelief. Didn't she become a fool because of the soul-searching technique? How could she still cry out in pain so clearly and even cry? Especially that gaze just now, it was incomparably clear, like a baby's eyes, without any impurities or emotions. This was completely different from the dim and unfocused eyes of a foolish person. Tang Jing's heart jumped. Could it be that something unexpected had happened? However, his strength was much higher than Li Xiaotian's, so he was not worried. Even if there was a problem, he could personally take care of her. Li Xiaotian cried as she wiped the tears from her eyes. She turned her head and looked at Tang Jing with a wronged expression and said, "Why did you throw me to the ground? It hurts." Her eyes were red and she had a pitiful look on her face. Tang Jing did not dare lower his guard. He coldly snorted and said, "Stop pretending. How can this amount of pain be considered?" He was already certain that Li Xiaotian had not become a fool. Vampires would not become foolish under his soul-searching technique, so the after-effects of the soul-searching technique could not be lumped together. It was just that most people would become foolish, and a small portion would be less affected. "You say I'm pretending? How can this be an act? You can try it yourself if you don't believe me. My butt really hurts." She gently rubbed her butt as she mumbled. "Li Xiaotian, at this point, you can stop acting," Tang Jing said coldly. "Li Xiaotian? You said my name is Li Xiaotian? Ah, why can't I remember who I am? Where is this, and who are you?" Li Xiaotian's clear eyes were filled with confusion. She hugged her head and shook it vigorously. Am I really called Li Xiaotian? What kind of person am I? And who are you to me? Li Xiaotian fired out a series of questions that made Tang Jing dumbfounded. Could it be that the after-effects of the soul-searching technique was to erase her memories? No. He definitely could not believe her so easily. Tang Jing secretly clenched his teeth as he recalled Li Xiaotian's actions. She was too cunning. What if she was pretending? Can you answer my questions? I'm so scared. Why can't I remember anything? Why did I become like this? Her face revealed a panicked expression that was very realistic. For a moment, Tang Jing could not tell if it was real or fake. Tang Jing clenched his fists. At this time, killing her would be as easy as flipping his hand. Tang Jing secretly circulated his true qi, preparing to make his move. Li Xiaotian suddenly grabbed Tang Jing's clothes and looked at him pitifully, saying, "You were hugging me just now, so you must be my friend, right? Tell me what happened. I'm so scared." Her eyes were as clear as the world's purest spring water, just like a baby's eyes. This made Tang Jing's tightly clenched fists loosen a bit. A thought kept urging him in his mind, kill her. She is a liar. This is a lie. You can't be fooled by her. But when Tang Jing looked at those eyes, he knew that they were not the eyes of the Li Xiaotian of the past. Even if Li Xiaotian pretended to be pitiful, her eyes were still filled with craftiness. Tang Jing had been with her for a long time, so she definitely could not fool him. But when he looked at that familiar face, he could not help but think of her misdeeds. Chapter 884. Tang Jing looked into her eyes and wanted to make a move several times, but he gave up in the end. If she really lost her memories, then he wouldn't be killing the real Li Xiaotian, but a completely new person with no memories. If she was still the original Li Xiaotian, then he wouldn't hesitate and wouldn't show any mercy. Could it be that this was the will of the heavens, giving her a chance to turn over a new leaf? This was equivalent to her being reborn. You really don't remember anything from the past? Tang Jing asked. Li Xiaotian shook her head. I don't remember anything. You're not lying to me? Why would I lie to you? I've never lied to anyone. Tang Jing had always wanted to find a flaw in her. As long as there was a trace of a flaw, he would make a move without hesitation. But he didn't find a single flaw. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to figure it out with just a few words. Since that was the case, then he would deal with her a bit more. He didn't choose to go home. Instead, he took her out of the small forest and into the bustling street. When observing a person, it was best to blend into the environment. At this time, her vigilance would be lowered and she would involuntarily reveal a flaw. Seeing that Tang Jing was silent, Li Xiaotian asked, "Are we friends?" Tang Jing sneered. They were mortal enemies, but he didn't say that. Instead, he asked, "What do you think?" "I think." She subconsciously recalled the scene when Tang Jing hugged her. Her cheeks turned red. "You hugged me just now. Are we a couple?" "Couple?" Tang Jing staggered and almost fell down. "Who would want to be a couple with you? That would be courting death." "What's wrong? Could it be that I guessed correctly?" Li Xiaotian asked with bright eyes. "No," Tang Jing said in a bad mood. "No means no. Why are you so fierce? So scary." Li Xiaotian pouted, looking pitiful. Tang Jing glared at her speechlessly. "You dare to say that I'm scary? You're the one who's scary. Then why don't you tell me about my past?" Li Xiaotian said with a smile. "What happened to you in the past?" Tang Jing muttered to himself. If he told her the truth, how would she feel? But if she really had no memory, wouldn't that make her become the black-bellied woman in the past? That would be a great sin. Tang Jing thought for a while and said, "You used to be an ordinary girl." "Ordinary girl? Don't I have anything special about me?" She seemed a little disappointed. "What do you want to be different?" She tilted her head and thought for a while before shaking her head and saying, I don't know either. The two of them chatted casually. Tang Zheng had been secretly observing her reaction, but he hadn't found any flaws yet. Ah! Suddenly, a scream broke the silence. Tang Zheng hurriedly turned his head to look at the source of the sound. He saw a woman standing on the street screaming, staring at a child in the middle of the road. A car was speeding towards the child. He had already stepped on the brakes, but it was too late. The woman had been scared silly. She was like a puppet, only knowing how to scream. There was no doubt that the child must be her child. Seeing a child about to die under the wheel of a car, Tang Zheng was ready to save the child but found that a figure had already rushed over like lightning and hugged the child. Bang! The car hit the person. She and the child flew up together and fell to the ground far away. But she always held the child in her arms and let her back touch the ground. Tang Zheng was also stunned by this scene. It was Li Xiaotian who saved the child. The real Li Xiaotian would never do such a thing. She would only think about herself. Why would she risk her life to save a little life that had nothing to do with her? All of this subverted Tang Zheng's understanding and reduced his suspicion of Li Xiaotian by a lot. However, seeing her rush out quickly and use such a clumsy method to save the child, Tang Zheng was a little confused. Li Xiaotian's power was still there, but she had lost her memory, so she didn't know that she had such great ability. Just now, she had only reacted instinctively and rushed over as fast as she could. Then, she didn't know what to do next. So, she was directly sent flying. If she dies from the collision, then I don't have to worry about whether to kill her or not. No, this was too despicable. Tang Zheng hurriedly shook his head. She risked her life to save someone, but he cursed her to die. This was too immoral. He rushed over quickly and found Li Xiaotian lying on the ground, grimacing and twitching her mouth in pain. But her eyes looking at the child in her arms were particularly gentle. She gently touched the child's face and asked with concern, "Little friend, are you okay?" The child was scared out of his wits and was stunned. He stared at her with his eyes wide open. Suddenly, the child burst into tears. Li Xiaotian panicked and quickly got up. She checked the child with both hands and said anxiously, "Little friend, don't cry. Did you fall down somewhere? Tell me, let's go to the hospital." That anxious look definitely didn't seem to be fake. Tang Zheng stood aside and quietly observed her every move. He couldn't help but feel absurd. Did the soul-searching technique really transform the two-faced woman, erase her memory, and turn her into such a caring person? Even so, the soul-searching technique erased only her memory, and now her reaction was more like instinct, that is to say, her nature was not bad. It was only because she received training and education from Li Palace from an early age that she became a cynical woman little by little. At this moment, she returned to her most innocent face. At the beginning of man, his nature was good, and this was her initial period. Since God let her start over, I can't push her into the dark abyss again. Looking at her heartfelt concern for the child, Tang Zheng silently made up his mind. Come and help me see him. What's wrong with him? Is he hurt? Li Xiaotian anxiously shouted at Tang Zheng, completely unaware that her elbow had been bleeding. At this time, the child's mother finally woke up from her dream and rushed over crazily. She hugged the child and said, "Baby, Mom is here. Did you fall down somewhere?" Tang Zheng walked over and comforted her, "Big sister, don't worry. The child is fine. He was just frightened." The child's mother also saw the scene just now and knew that the child didn't fall to the ground. It was the little girl in front of her who saved her child. Thump. Her legs went soft and she directly knelt in front of Li Xiaotian. She sobbed and said, "Miss, thank you for saving my child. You are the benefactor of my entire family." Thank you, woo woo woo," Li Xiaotian quickly helped him up. There were already a lot of onlookers gathered around them. They were all talking at once, but without exception, they were all praising Li Xiaotian. There were also those who praised the child's life. Pa! Pa! It was unknown who was the first to clap, but then, the applause sounded like a tide, and many people gave Li Xiaotian a thumbs up. The driver also stopped the car and walked over in a daze. This time, it wasn't his fault. The child ran into the middle of the road when the mother wasn't paying attention. When the driver saw it, he braked, but it was too late. The driver saw that the child was fine and looked at Li Xiaotian. He asked nervously, "Miss, how are you?" Li Xiaotian finally reacted and cried out in pain. Looking at the blood on her elbow and the faint pain from her back, her tears fell like a kite with a broken string. Previously, she couldn't stop crying when she was thrown to the ground by Tang Zheng. Now that she was hit by a car, the pain was many times more intense. But just now, all her thoughts were on the child and she didn't feel the pain. Now that she calmed down, she felt as if her whole body was falling apart. Seeing her cry heartbreakingly, the others were very distressed. The child's mother quickly said, "Miss, let's go to the hospital to check if you fell." "That's right, you must go to the hospital for a checkup. You're a good Samaritan." Nowadays, people don't even dare to help the elderly. There aren't many good people like you left. We can't let the lady do a good deed and still be disappointed. Everyone said at once. "Take my car." The driver also said. "Am I seriously injured?" Li Xiaotian moved her muscles and bones like a pear blossom in the rain. She took a deep breath and said, "I think it should be fine. It's just a little painful." "If it's painful, then you should go to the hospital to check." Tang Zheng grabbed Li Xiaotian's hand and used his qi to check her injuries. He found that she only had a superficial wound and her elbow was scraped. Other than that, there was nothing serious. After all, she had skills. Even if she didn't know how to use them, she was much better than ordinary people. That powerful impact was automatically dissolved, so she naturally didn't suffer any injuries. However, her startled appearance was really worrying. The people next to her kept urging her to go to the hospital. "There's no need to go to the hospital. Your body is fine," Tang Zheng lightly said. Li Xiaotian discovered that he was grabbing her hand. Her eyes widened in surprise as she asked, "You also have medical skills?" "I know a little," Tang Zheng said. "Wow, then you're too amazing. Am I really okay?" "It's only a little superficial wound. Go back and apply some medicine," Tang Zheng said. "Young man, this is not a small matter. Don't leave any sequelae. That would be troublesome and ruin the miss's life." Some people didn't believe Tang Zheng. Seeing more and more people gathering, Tang Zheng didn't want Li Xiaotian to be exposed. So, he pulled her hand and quickly squeezed out of the crowd. "Benefactor, I still haven't thanked you." Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear. He pulled Li Xiaotian and turned a corner before stopping. Li Xiaotian's face was brimming with a brilliant smile and said, "Why are we running? Don't leave your name when doing a good deed. Don't you know?" Chapter 885. It was already late and the villa was lit up with bright lights. A group of people were sitting together watching TV. "Our station is reporting that a courageous act happened in Beijing this afternoon. A woman rushed into the street without a care for her own safety. She would rather be hit by a car to protect a child she did not know. She did a good deed without leaving her name and quietly left. Fortunately, she was not injured. Next, please watch the latest report from our station's reporter." The host of the TV station reported with perfect pronunciation. The scene changed. It was the mother and child of the child involved, as well as other onlookers. Everyone was talking at once, describing the scene they saw, praising the woman who acted bravely for a just cause, admiring her actions. Finally, the host concluded, "Who said that the world is cold and there are no good people? This is the living Lei Feng of the new era, a practitioner of positive energy." As a mother, Mu Hongyan's attention was attracted by the news. She subconsciously hugged Nana tightly. Nana looked at the TV and said, "Mom, is that Sister Superman?" Mu Hongyan laughed involuntarily. "She is not Superman. She is a brave sister. Even if she is Superman, she is not as good as brother," Nana said in a childish voice. In her heart, Tang Zheng was the most powerful person in the world. Looking at her incomparably serious expression, Mu Hongyan sighed in her heart. Yes, there is no one in the world more powerful than Tang Zheng, at least to the mother and daughter. So when you grow up, you have to learn from this sister. You have to be a brave girl, understand? Mu Hongyan said patiently. Nana nodded heavily. Nana will become a brave child. This sister is so good. Mom always says that good people have good lives. Is this sister the same? Of course, so you have to be a good person. Yes, Nana will remember. The others also saw the news and thought at the same time that if they were in her shoes, they would definitely do the same. However, if an ordinary person dared to do this, it would require a lot of courage. They couldn't help but admire him from the bottom of their hearts. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps came from outside the door. Nana jumped down from Mu Hongyan's arms and ran to the door while shouting happily, "Brother is back." Creak. The door opened, and two figures stood at the entrance. Everyone turned their heads to look, but in an instant, their eyes turned cold as they looked at Li Xiaotian beside Tang Zheng in disbelief. "Wow, Sister Li Xiaotian, you're back too." Nana was still a child, so she didn't know who Li Xiaotian was, so she greeted her obediently. Li Xiaotian's face also lit up with joy. Although she didn't remember Nana, but looking at Nana's appearance, she couldn't help but exclaim, "What a cute little girl." She made a gesture to hug Nana, scaring Mu Hongyan so much that she turned pale with fright and screamed, "Don't." Li Xiaotian was slightly startled and subconsciously stopped, looking blankly at Mu Hongyan. Mu Hongyan rushed to Nana and hugged her in her arms, as if she was afraid that something would happen to her. The other people's faces changed greatly as they looked at Li Xiaotian warily, ready to attack at any time. Li Xiaotian was stunned and looked at everyone at a loss. Tang Zheng knew that there was a misunderstanding, so he quickly explained, "Everyone, calm down, it's not what you think." He originally wanted to go out and get rid of Li Xiaotian, but now he brought back a living person, and this living person was obviously no different from a normal person, not a fool. This made them horrified. Seeing how calm Tang Zheng was, the others heaved a sigh of relief, but they were still looking at Li Xiaotian with unfriendly expressions. Looking at everyone's reaction, Li Xiaotian was at a loss for a moment. She trembled like a child who had done something wrong. She said nervously, "Hello, everyone, my name is Li Xiaotian. I'm very happy to meet you." Tang Zheng did not explain the situation at home to her beforehand, wanting to use this method to test her one last time. However, it was clear that Li Xiaotian had passed without the slightest flaw. As for bringing her home directly, Tang Zheng had no choice. He couldn't just leave her outside, that was even worse. She was like a blank piece of paper right now, lacking a lot of common sense and unable to live alone. Furthermore, there were so many people watching her at home, watching her in full view of everyone, just to prevent trouble before it happened. All in all, Tang Zheng was still on guard against her, just that he did it without leaving any traces. Marshall hated Li Xiaotian to the bone, stared at her with an ominous glint, gritted her teeth and said, "Why did you bring her back?" "I'll explain in a moment. Everyone sit down first." "Li Xiaotian, you sit too," Tang Zheng said gently. Marshall sat down hatefully, but her gaze was firmly locked onto Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian cowered behind Tang Zheng and muttered, "Her eyes are so scary." Nana, who was in Mu Hongyan's embrace, stared at Li Xiaotian with her big black eyes and said, "Sister Nana, don't be afraid. You have to be a brave girl, just like the girl who saved people on TV. Nana will also be a brave child." Li Xiaotian popped out from behind Tang Zheng and said with a smile, "I'll listen to you. Big sister will be a brave girl. Yes, you still have to save people, just like Superman. I saved someone just now." The fear in Li Xiaotian's heart was melted by Nana's sincere smile. and she subconsciously said. However, she immediately remembered Tang Zheng's warning that she couldn't leave her name behind when she did a good deed, so she couldn't publicize it like this, so she stuck out her tongue and hurriedly stopped talking. Did the sun rise from the west? Everyone looked at Li Xiaotian in disbelief. It was good enough that she did not harm people, but she actually saved people. How was that possible? Moreover, she even stuck out her tongue. Was this kind of cute expression something she could make? Confused. Everyone was confused. Seeing everyone looking at her as if she was an alien, Li Xiaotian stuck out her tongue and said embarrassedly, Tang Zheng said to not leave your name behind when doing good deeds. I won't say that again. Not leaving your name behind when doing good deeds. Come on, have you ever done a good deed? Everyone looked at each other and really did not understand what was going on. Tang Zheng coughed and motioned for everyone to sit down and talk. Then, he told the truth. Li Xiaotian lost her memory. She doesn't remember anything from the past, so don't make a fuss. Amnesia? How was that possible? This kind of thing could be understood if it happened to other people, but for it to happen to Li Xiaotian, it was inconceivable. She really saved people? Mu Hongyan asked. Tang Zheng nodded and told her what happened in the afternoon. Li Xiaotian lowered her head in embarrassment and waved her hands. This is what I should do. That child is too dangerous. Mu Hongyan suddenly remembered the news she had just seen. Wasn't Tang Zheng's description consistent with the news? Could it be that the living Lei Feng, superwoman, was Li Xiaotian? The person in the news was her? News? She's actually on the news? Tang Zheng said in surprise. Mu Hongyan quickly repeated the contents of the news. Tang Zheng nodded and confirmed that it was her. Immediately, everyone's emotions were complicated. Just a moment ago, they were praising this person's greatness and bravery. At this moment, they realized that this person was actually their enemy. Wu growled in disbelief, no, it can't be her. She can't be that kind-hearted. Li Xiaotian's face turned pale, she looked at Wu pitifully, and muttered in grievance, I really did it. Impossible. Li Xiaotian had targeted Tang Zheng time and time again, and had almost killed Tang Zheng and Lan Yu. How could she forgive him so easily? Lan Yu had been silently observing Wu the entire time. She had almost died at the hands of Li Xiaotian, so the anger in her heart was naturally not small. However, all she saw in Li Xiaotian's eyes was sincerity, without the slightest bit of cunning. She had seen countless people, and if one wanted to deceive her, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. However, she did not notice any clues from beginning to end. She could not help but become suspicious. Could it be that Li Xiaotian had really lost his memories and his personality had changed? She could not be sure, but she believed in her son. Seeing Wu so agitated, she hurriedly advised, Wu, don't be agitated. Let's listen to what they have to say first. Li Xiaotian lowered his head like a child who had done something wrong, and said pitifully, was I very bad in the past, that's why you all hate me so much? Humph, you're not just bad. You're bad to the bones. Wu said with an ashen face. Wu. Li Xiaotian covered his face and buried his head in his knees as he cried. Everyone looked at Li Xiaotian as if they had seen a ghost. She was actually crying. One must know that Li Xiaotian was the holy maiden of Li Palace. In her entire life, other than crying when she was young, she had never cried when she grew up. But at this moment, she was actually crying in front of everyone. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They really did not know how to describe this scene. Tang Zheng had already seen this side of Li Xiaotian before, so he was not surprised and said, don't cry. Your previous actions were indeed inappropriate, but that was all in the past. Li Xiaotian raised his head and looked at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze. You're saying that what she said is true? Was I really a bad person in the past? Tang Zheng was silent. This matter would be exposed sooner or later. It would be more useful to say it earlier than to hide it. Seeing that Tang Zheng had tacitly agreed, Li Xiaotian's face turned ashen. His face was pale as he muttered to himself in distress. Why is it like this? How could I be a bad person in the past? I don't want to be a bad person. I want to be a good person. I want to be a good person who saves people. When I saved that child, I was very happy. I like that feeling. I don't want to be a bad person. Her nagging appearance was extremely painful and made people's hearts ache. But when they thought of her previous actions, they could not sympathize with her. Tang Zheng patted her shoulder. For a moment, he did not know how to comfort her. Who would have thought that Li Xiaotian would take the opportunity to lean on his shoulder and tightly grasp his hand and say, I want to be a good person, not a bad person. Seeing her tightly grasp Tang Zheng's hand and even intimately lean on his shoulder, everyone's expression became strange. How could a life and death enemy become so intimate in the blink of an eye? Moreover, after losing his memories, why was Li Xiaotian so weak? Chapter 886. After Tang Zheng comforted her for a while, Li Xiaotian finally calmed down and sent her back to her room to rest. When Tang Zheng came downstairs, he saw that everyone was staring at him. Everyone, lower your voice. Tell me what you think. Tang Zheng knew that everyone had yet to speak freely, so he spoke out all the questions in his heart. Why didn't you kill her? Wu Yu looked at him resentfully and asked. I wanted to kill her. If she was still the Li Xiaotian of the past, then I would not hesitate to kill her. But when she woke up, she found that she had lost all her memories and was no longer the Li Xiaotian of the past. I killed a stranger. How could it be a stranger? She's still Li Xiaotian. Marshall was overbearing. You all know about her actions of saving people. Do you think that if it was the real Li Xiaotian, she would do that? So I feel that she is no longer the original Li Xiaotian. It's easy to change mountains and rivers, but it's hard to change one's nature. Tang Zheng did not deny it, and only said, if she really becomes the Li Xiaotian of the past, then I will personally end her. Marshal Qi was obviously dissatisfied with Tang Zheng's actions. Fang Shishir did not have much contact with Li Xiaotian, so she was kind-hearted and did not blame Tang Zheng. Instead, she asked curiously, then do you think that she will become like before? Tang Zheng was momentarily at a loss for words, because she was also unable to give a definite answer. Look, even you can't be sure. What if she becomes like before? So it's better to kill her as soon as possible. Marshall insisted, if you can't do it, I'll do it. No way. Tang Zheng would not let Wu's hands be stained with innocent blood. He sighed and said earnestly, Wu, I understand your thoughts. Her past actions were indeed very bad, and I also hate her, but how can a person not be wrong? As the old saying goes, knowing one's wrongs and being able to change is the greatest. Furthermore, a prodigal son turning back is not worth changing. If she really becomes a good person, why should we kill a good person? You're eloquent. I can't win against you. Marshall said angrily. What do you think? Tang Zheng turned his gaze to Lan Yu. She was the person involved and had the most right to speak. Lan Yu looked at his son with a burning gaze, and only after a long time did he say, Tang Zheng, you are a kind-hearted person. I am very gratified. Since you think you can give her a second chance, then I agree. Although Lan Yu was a bit hesitant, seeing how resolute her son was, she agreed. Mu Hongyan nodded and said, actually, she saved that innocent child today, which at least proves that she is a good person at this moment. Since she is a good person now, and also has a good heart, we can't kill her now. She was a person with a child, so she could especially understand how that child's family would feel if Li Xiaotian did not make a move today, so she wholeheartedly agreed with Tang Zheng. Princess An took the lead and said, the Lord will give people a chance to turn over a new leaf. I believe in Tang Zheng's vision. Empyrean Fairy shrugged and said, an insignificant person, whether or not he dies will not change the overall situation. Obviously, in her eyes, she still thought that Li Xiaotian's level was too low, so he was not a concern. Yi Dingdang saw that everyone was looking at him, so he raised his eyebrows and said, "I agree with Marshall. Killing him will be neat and tidy." Immediately, Marshall felt that Yi Dingdang was a close friend. There were many similarities in their personalities, and they both hated evil. Tang Jing also hated evil, but Li Xiaotian's actions today had moved him, so he decided to give her another chance. Seeing that most people agreed with him, Tang Jing nodded and said, "Then we will do this for now." However, Marshall and Dingdang's opinions are worth paying attention to. One should not have the heart to harm others, but one must guard against others. Letting her live in our house is to guard against her. I will keep an eye on her. If she dares to act blindly without thinking, I will definitely not show mercy," Marshall said with a murderous aura. Tang Jing did not oppose. "Actually, as long as we guide her, if she really stands with us, then in the future when we deal with the Azure Dragon Palace, she might be able to play an unexpected role," Empyrean Fairy said meaningfully. Tang Jing's heart moved as he understood the Empyrean Fairy's meaning. If Li Xiaotian was a spy, then it would be twice the result with half the effort. But there were too many variables, so they did not dare to take such a risk and let Li Xiaotian return. Moreover, they had already dealt with Rockefeller, so they wanted to point their swords at the Azure Dragon Palace. There was no need to take such a risk. No need. Tang Jing rejected. Empyrean Fairy said without thinking, "Then pretend I didn't say anything. Where's Tian Chanzi? How come I don't see him?" Tang Jing looked around but did not find Tian Chanzi's figure. Master went to live somewhere else. He said that the smell of women here is too strong, Fang Shishir said with a smile. Tang Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Speaking of morals, if he wants to stay, I won't let him stay. In this villa, other than Tang Jing, everyone was a woman. Even the mosquitoes were female. The smell of cosmetics was indeed heavy. However, Tang Jing's nine-yang holy body was very suitable for this place. The next day, Tian Chanzi came early in the morning. When he heard about Li Xiaotian's situation, he did not have much of a reaction. Just like Empyrean Fairy, he did not put Li Xiaotian in his eyes and thought that it was not related to the overall situation. Not long after, Yen Potion's call came. It turned out that the enemy's whereabouts were already known. Tang Jing was overjoyed. The Yen family did not disappoint him. They actually dug out the whereabouts of this group of people so quickly. Although everyone took the initiative to volunteer, in the end, only Tang Jing, Tian Chanzi and Lan Yu participated in the operation. The others stayed at home. The enemy was not weak, and he did not know what moves they had. Therefore, it was better to be careful and not let too many people participate in the battle. Although the others also wanted to participate in the battle, they had no choice but to work hard at home and continue to cultivate. Lan Yu was very happy to see that Tang Jing actually agreed to her travel, and looked at him deeply. Although Tang Jing did not respond, she still felt that her relationship with him was improving. Perhaps in the near future, she would be able to hear him call her mother. The three of them arrived at the agreed location with Yen Padian. This was a wide street, and it was actually the embassy area. There were embassies of various countries in this place. Among them, the embassy of the Atlantic Empire was the largest and most conspicuous. The entrance was guarded by tall soldiers armed with live ammunition. Ordinary people would not be able to enter at all. Tang Jing faintly discovered that there were already many suspicious Huaxia faces on the streets, staring at the Atlantic Empire's embassy from afar or close by. Yen Padian brought his son and grandson and walked over, and said, "We found these guys." "Where is it?" Yen Padian pointed to the Atlantic Empire's embassy. "They are hiding inside. These people are really cunning. I spent a lot of effort to dig them out. No one would have thought that they would openly hide inside the embassy. I have already sent people to monitor the embassy. They will not be able to escape." So those Huaxia faces were from the Yen family. Tang Jing suddenly realized that Rockefeller was indeed a group of cunning old foxes. Hiding in the embassy made Tang Jing hesitate and not dare to barge in. This was Rockefeller's little thought. However, they had still underestimated Tang Zheng's determination. He had already prepared a case with the chief, so the other party definitely knew that these people were hiding in the embassy. However, the chief still tacitly agreed to Tang Zheng's actions, which meant that they had a premonition of the situation and a corresponding countermeasure. Since that was the case, what else did Tang Zheng have to worry about? Yan Padian did not know about this, and said worriedly, "If we were to barge into the embassy, then the nature of the matter would change. Shouldn't we be more cautious?" Tang Zheng snorted coldly, and said disapprovingly, "If we miss this village, we won't be able to have this shop. We can't guard them outside the embassy for a lifetime. If we wait for a long time, they will find a way to slip away, so there's no time to lose. Are we really going to barge in? Then the impact." Yan Padian said worriedly. "Even if the sky falls, I will carry it. Moreover, even if we get rid of them, we won't be able to step down. The Atlantic Empire is very powerful, but I, Hua Xia, am no longer the same as before. Back then, when they bombed our embassy, we didn't settle the score with them because our national strength was still weak. Now, I want to follow their example. If they really don't know what's good for them, I don't mind letting them taste the feeling of the embassy being destroyed." Tang Zheng said with righteous indignation. Tian Chanzi chuckled, patted Tang Zheng's shoulder, and praised, "Good boy, you have guts." Yan Padian laughed bitterly in his heart. He looked at them speechlessly, but he did not hesitate to express his stance. "Then we will vote for them." The Yan family and Tang Zheng advanced and retreated together. Even if Tang Zheng wanted to attack a country, the Yan family would not hesitate to take the lead and follow. How do we get in? Of course, if we can get rid of Rockefeller quietly, there is no need for us to make everyone know about it and make too much of a fuss. Therefore, we will sneak in secretly. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment before deciding. That means we can't bring too many people in, and the enemy definitely has a lot of people. Do we have a chance of winning? Yan Padian asked worriedly. I've fought with Nicholas before, so I know his background, so I think our chances of winning are very high. Tang Zheng said, but everyone still has to take care of themselves. After we deal with them, we still have to retreat unscathed. Don't worry, we can control the people outside at any time. If there really is too much danger, we can order the people outside to rush in and help at any time. At most, we can turn the world upside down. Yan Padian said indifferently. Obviously, he was also a daring person. If he really made up his mind to do it, he wouldn't have too many worries. The few of them looked at each other and nodded. In order to avoid any trouble, they didn't even wait until it was dark and immediately took action. So, the few of them turned into a few afterimages and flipped over the tall walls of the embassy. They did not trigger the alarm and even directly avoided the surveillance and patrolling soldiers. As for where exactly Rockefeller was hiding in the embassy, they did not know for the time being, but the ambassador definitely knew, so they wanted to kidnap him. This kind of thing that could easily cause international disputes was like child's play to them, and they didn't care at all. Chapter 887. Who are you? How dare you trespass into the Atlantic Empire's embassy? The ambassador scolded in fluent Huaxia. Tang Zheng rushed over like a ferocious tiger, grabbing at the opponent. Whoosh! The ambassador actually retreated at lightning speed. It was definitely not the reaction speed of an ordinary person. Huh! You actually dodged it. Let's see how long you can hide. Tang Zheng was as fast as lightning. This time, the other party didn't even have time to react before falling into Tang Zheng's hands. What are you doing? The ambassador scolded with a red face. Tang Zheng was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He directly grabbed his neck and asked fiercely, "Where are the Rockefeller people hiding?" The ambassador's eyes flashed with a trace of undetectable panic. If Tang Zheng was a bit further away, he definitely wouldn't have noticed it. But now that the two of them were so close, not a single change in the ambassador could escape Tang Zheng's sharp eyes. He definitely knows. Tang Zheng judged. I don't know what you're talking about. This is the embassy, the territory of the Atlantic Empire. You are invading. You have to take responsibility. The ambassador roared. Tang Jing sneered, you want to use your voice to attract others to save you? I advise you to give up on that idea. As for the bullshit Western Empire's territory, so what if I'm here? You're not a gentleman. You're a robber, a terrorist. F***ck, your Atlantic Empire calls whoever you don't like a terrorist. Are you used to it? Let me tell you, if you don't tell the truth, don't even think about walking out of this door. Tang Jing wasn't a gentleman at all. He tightened his grip. I won't say it even if you beat me to death. The ambassador would rather die than submit. Is that so? Since you want to die, then I'll fulfill your wish. Tang Jing had the soul search technique. It was too easy to dig out the secrets from the ambassador. Just use the soul search technique. Why are you wasting time with him? Tian Chanzi impatiently urged. Tang Jing immediately cast the technique, but suddenly his hand loosened. The ambassador turned into a cloud of black smoke and then into a large bat. He escaped from Tang Jing's hands and flapped his wings to fly out the door. Blood Clan. Several people cried out in alarm. Who would have thought that even the ambassador was a vampire? The Atlantic Empire had actually been infiltrated by vampires to such an extent that even a high-ranking official was no exception. Don't even think about leaving. Tang Jing's aura skyrocketed. When he faked his death, he lost the War Soul Sword and it fell into the hands of the Blood Clan. This time, not only did he want to exterminate the Blood Clan, he also wanted to retrieve the War Soul Sword. Therefore, how could he allow the other party to escape? He stretched out his hand and used the sky-swallowing technique. The powerful suction force immediately caused the airflow in the room to become chaotic. The fleeing figure of the ambassador suddenly stopped, and then he screamed as he was sucked back into Tang Jing's palm. Run? Let's see how you can escape. Looking at the big bat in his hand, Tang Jing felt disgusted and grabbed its head without hesitation. In an instant, Tang Jing searched through all the information in the ambassador's mind. However, the other party was a vampire, and the damage to his brain was immediately healed. Thus, he wasn't stupid and roared at the top of his lungs, "You're challenging Rockefeller and provoking the Atlantic Empire. You'll die miserably, and your country will be consigned to eternal damnation. You're still boasting shamelessly when you're about to die." Tang Jing coldly berated as the suction force in his palm increased. Swoosh! With a flash of black light, the ambassador disappeared from Tang Jing's palm and was sucked in. This was the first time the others had seen this scene. They all stared curiously and asked, "Where did he go?" "I don't know, but he's definitely dead." Tang Jing shook his head. "I already know where Rockefeller is hiding. Let's end this quickly." Tian Chanzi had long since sealed the room, so no matter how shrill and loud the ambassador's voice was, it couldn't be transmitted out. The soldiers outside didn't know that the ambassador no longer existed. When Tang Jing and the others opened the door and walked out, the other party was obviously stunned. Tang Jing moved like lightning, and the other party immediately fainted on the ground. Then, the group went straight for their target. The basement was extremely wide and huge. It was very similar to the basement under the Rockefeller family's castle in the Atlantic Empire, except that it was a smaller version. When Tang Jing and the others broke in, they saw a scene that made them burn with anger. There were actually many corpses of young girls in the basement. The blood on their bodies had been sucked dry, and they looked like dried corpses. Some of them weren't dead yet, but the vampires were biting their throats and sucking their blood. They were still struggling, but it was all in vain. Their blood was rapidly flowing out, and their faces were as pale as paper. This was a demon's den. Beasts! Tang Jing roared. Looking at their faces, these women were all Huaxia people. This group of vampires actually sucked the blood of Huaxia people. In the past, I've always heard that women often went missing in Sanlatan, but we couldn't find any clues. I'm afraid they were brought here by this group of beasts. Yen Luyun said with red eyes. That bar street was a place where many foreigners lingered, and many Huaxia women were the most enthusiastic about these foreigners. There were even many who wanted to hook up with these foreigners. They probably never dreamed that such a cruel scene would be waiting for them. Let's go on a killing spree and kill all of these bastards. Tang Zheng roared. He was extremely angry. He took the lead and charged forward. A vampire bared his teeth, revealing 2 long fangs. Die! Tang Zheng roared. He grabbed the other party's body like lightning and tore it in half. Although vampires had strong healing abilities, they were unable to recover from this degree of injury and died immediately. The other people's attacks were also very sharp, especially Lan Yu. Seeing the other party kill women like this, she was seething with anger. Pung! She swept out her palm and hit a head. Like a ripe watermelon, it immediately exploded into a bloody mist. Roar roar! A few werewolves also jumped out and quickly transformed. Their large bodies pounced over, their sharp claws clawing at the people. They didn't dodge at all, choosing to meet force with force. Apart from Yan Luyun, everyone here was at least a master-level martial artist, so they weren't afraid at all when facing these vampires and werewolves. On the contrary, because of their anger, their attacks were especially clean, all of them aiming to kill in one blow. In an instant, the ground was littered with the corpses of many vampires and werewolves, and most of them were incomplete. The other women who were lucky enough to survive stared blankly at this scene. They originally thought that they were going to die, but they didn't expect that there would be a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel, and a group of their compatriots would appear. These compatriots were very powerful and efficient. These monsters weren't their match at all. However, their brains had already lost the ability to think, and they could only stare blankly at the tragic battle. Tang Zheng was in the mood to kill, and charged into the crowd as if there was no one around. After a few rounds, more than 10 vampires and werewolves had already fallen at his feet. However, after searching through the crowd, he couldn't find Nicholas's figure. Impossible, the information in the ambassador's mind indicated that Nicholas was in the basement. He widened his eyes and searched through the crowd, but he still couldn't find any trace of him. The vampires and werewolves finally knew that they were no match for this group of Huaxia people. Some of the smarter ones immediately fled toward the exit. Xiao Bai, guard the exit. Don't let anyone escape. Tang Zheng roared. Xiao Bai leaped and floated in the air above the exit. He saw a werewolf and a vampire rushing over. Immediately, with a boom, he spat out a ball of flame. The 2 fellows immediately turned into 2 balls of flame and fled in all directions. However, after a few leaps, they fell to the ground motionlessly and were burned to ashes. One man guarding the pass, 10,000 men couldn't get through. No one could escape from the exit. Xiao Bai was lazy. These fellows couldn't arouse his interest at all. The disparity in strength was too great. Looking at Xiao Bai's smug look, Tang Zheng couldn't laugh. These werewolves and vampires deserved to die, and he didn't pity them at all. However, what made him distressed was that Nicholas had disappeared, and the War Soul sword was nowhere to be found. Damn it, the War Soul sword must be in Nicholas's hands. I must find him and eliminate him. Another werewolf rushed over. Tang Zheng grabbed his huge head. The other party was very tall and tried to struggle, but found that he couldn't move at all. Tang Zheng hurriedly used the soul-searching technique. Werewolves were not like vampires and could heal their injuries, so the werewolf struggle immediately stopped, and he became stupid. Bang! After Tang Zheng finished using the soul-searching technique, he punched the werewolf's chest. The werewolf's chest quickly caved in, and his back suddenly swelled up. He exploded into a bloody mist and fell to the ground. Tang Zheng's gaze turned and stared at a wall in the basement. He rushed over like an arrow, and his huge fist was like a cannonball, bombarding the wall. Boom! Stone fragments flew, and the wall trembled violently, revealing a big hole. This punch didn't penetrate the wall, but revealed the steel plate behind the stone. There's a door behind here. Tang Zheng roared, and the other's attention was immediately attracted. Nicholas is behind here. I'll do it. Tian Chanzi channeled his power and fiercely stomped down. Bang bang, the floor cracked inch by inch, like a spider web. Hey! Tian Chanzi roared. His fists were like angry dragons emerging from the sea, hitting the steel plate. Bang bang, the steel plate shook violently, and 2 black spots appeared. Thin cracks spread out from the black spots, and the cracks quickly expanded, covering the steel plate in an instant. Tian Chanzi raised his mouth and gently blew a breath. This breath seemed to be the last straw that broke the camel's back. Crash! The steel plate shattered into palm-sized pieces that clattered to the ground, revealing an empty room behind it. This room was even smaller and more secretive. At this moment, the room was already empty. There were surveillance cameras in the room, and everything in the basement outside could be clearly seen. There was no doubt that Nicholas must have seen the battle outside through the surveillance cameras. After weighing the pros and cons, he knew that he was no match for them, so he ran away. Why does this embassy have so many basements? There are even tunnels? Tang Zheng looked at the half-open door in front of him with an ashen face and said hatefully. The battle outside also came to an end. All the werewolves and vampires were killed, and only the lucky woman was left. Chase! Tang Zheng, without hesitation, chased after him. Chapter 888. Behind the door was a long passageway. After they entered, there was a circulation of air. Clearly, there was an exit on the other side. Tang Zheng gave chase while dialing Ding Liang's number. The government must have been paying attention to their movements. Perhaps they were already making the necessary preparations. If that was the case, why not give them a big gift and let them avoid the Atlantic Empire's accusations? After all, they would cause a serious diplomatic disturbance if they barged into the embassy. Without a doubt, the dirty things in the basement were the best excuse to retaliate. It was just a matter of whether the government dared to break into the embassy. He roughly described what he saw and told Ding Liang to report it to the higher-ups. This was not something Ding Liang could decide. As for what the higher-ups would do, he did not worry. His main focus was on the Rockefeller family. Not long after, a door appeared in front of them. Behind the door was a large warehouse filled with all kinds of vegetables. Tang Zheng looked back. The door was already closed and merged with the wall. He could not sense that there was another world behind the wall. This group of people was really cunning. They were obviously walking on a plank road, but they were secretly walking on a different path. This secret passage actually led to a warehouse. What was this place? There was another door in the warehouse. Tang Zheng pushed it open without hesitation. A burst of smoke and oil rushed into their nostrils. The noise was like a tidal wave. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. This was actually a huge kitchen, and it was bustling with activity. Everyone was busy, and there were all kinds of delicious dishes in the pot. Where are they? Tang Zheng growled. The chefs looked at the group of uninvited guests with puzzled faces. Did you see a few Westerners leave? Tang Zheng hurriedly asked. Everyone shook their heads and said they did not know. Suddenly, they were dumbfounded. The tunnel led here, how could they not see it? No, they must have been in disguise to escape the eyes of these chefs who were working hard. Come, let's go out and take a look. Tang Zheng did not give up. He rushed out of the kitchen with the others. Outside was a banquet hall. A wedding was being held. The bride and groom were holding the ceremony under the witness of all the guests. Tang Zheng looked up and glanced around. There were many foreign faces in this wedding. Could these be Rockefeller's men? Tang Zheng's heart moved, and he directly picked up the nearest foreigner and asked, "Are you Rockefeller's people?" The other party looked at him blankly, and then immediately became angry. Unexpectedly, he scolded him in fluent Huaxia language, "Who are you? What do you want?" Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows. This person clearly wasn't very strong. Could it be that he wasn't one of Rockefeller's men? His gaze subconsciously swept towards the wedding stage. The groom was actually a foreign face, and the first few tables were also filled with foreigners. Tang Jing immediately realized that this was a multinational couple. The foreign faces among the guests were not necessarily Rockefeller's people. This is bad. Tang Jing was secretly anxious. According to his speculation, he was not far from Rockefeller. If he let him go like this, it would be harder to deal with him in the future. He could not let go of this opportunity. The arrival of these uninvited guests immediately caused the wedding scene to fall into silence. Especially when Tang Jing rudely mentioned the guests' behavior, it made the people around him exclaim. In an instant, everyone looked in their direction, pointing and whispering to each other. Tang Jing acted as if he didn't see it. Although he disturbed the wedding of the couple, he had no choice. He cupped his fist and gestured to the crowd, saying, "Sorry for the disturbance. Did anyone see any suspicious people from the Atlantic Empire? Who are you? Who let you barge in? Hurry up and get him out." The bride's mother flew into a rage and rushed over like a swarm of bees. She finally found a foreign rich husband and could hold her head high among her neighbors. How could she allow an outsider to ruin the wedding? Who is the suspicious person? I'm telling you, you are the most suspicious person. Get out of here right now. Her face was red and she scolded arrogantly. Tang Jing turned a deaf ear. His eyes swept through the crowd like a scanner. However, there were too many Western faces. For a moment, he couldn't distinguish who was from the Rockefeller family. As for Nicola's face, because there were too many people, he didn't see it. Seeing that Tang Jing didn't pay attention to her, the middle-aged woman shouted, "Security, hurry up and get these people out." Tang Jing had an intuition that Rockefeller's people were among these people because they couldn't have escaped so quickly. Tang Jing gestured to the others, and they all understood. In a flash, they shuttled through the banquet and stared at the Western faces with their fiery eyes. "What are you doing? Hurry up and get out!" Someone shouted. The guests rushed over like a swarm of bees to stop them. The scene suddenly fell into chaos. Tang Jing hurriedly channeled his energy. The others couldn't get close at all. However, it couldn't go on like this. Suddenly, Tang Jing saw a familiar figure from the corner of his eyes. He shouted, "Nicola!" As soon as his voice fell, a figure ran outside. "Stop!" Tang Jing leapt up like a falcon, leaping over the heads of the crowd, pouncing towards that figure. Whoosh! Whoosh! However, several cold lights shot from all directions and went straight for Tang Jing's vital parts. There really is an accomplice. Tang Jing didn't panic. He hurriedly took out the holy armor shield. With a flash of light, dazzling sparks flew from the holy armor shield. Tang Jing wasn't hurt at all. Everyone saw this scene, and immediately screams sounded everywhere. The crowd ran in all directions, and the situation became even more chaotic. Tian Chanzi and the others didn't stay idle. They quickly locked on to the enemy who had just thrown the weapon and attacked quickly and accurately. Bang! 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 Several balls of blood exploded. Immediately, the screams became even more intense. Some people couldn't tell the direction and directly bumped into them. The vampires were mixed in. With a flash of cold light, they directly attacked the vital parts of the people. A group of beasts. You want to sneak attack? Go to hell. Heaven Monk roared, with a wave of his finger, the sword chi swept out, pu pu pu. The sword chi passed through the head of one of the Blood Clan, and before the remaining force disappeared, it shot into the chest of another person, causing both of them to immediately fall to the ground and die. Roar! 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 A series of roars sounded. The werewolves quickly transformed. They were tall and ferocious. Several ordinary people stood in front of them. They waved their claws and slapped at them. Bang! One of them flew out into the distance. Beast, how dare you hurt people? Lan Yu shouted. Her figure flashed like a dancing butterfly as she spun and flew up. With a sweep of her leg, she kicked a werewolf's head. The head was separated from the body. It smashed into the wall and broke into pieces. The attacks of the 3 members of the Yen family were also very strong. They had fought with the werewolves and vampires before, so they knew their strength. Many enemies fell wherever they went. The banquet hall became a scene of carnage. It was a mess. Corpses were everywhere, and the smell of blood filled the air. The ordinary guests had already rushed out screaming, but some who were not afraid of death hid at the door and peeked. They were really good at watching. The funniest thing was that the groom abandoned the bride and ran faster than anyone else. He was tall and had long legs. He squeezed out of the door in a few steps, leaving only the screaming bride. Tang Zheng locked onto his target. Seeing that Nicholas wanted to blend into the crowd and rush out, he leaped into the air and pointed at his back. Hearing the sound behind him, Nicholas's face turned pale. He had really met his Waterloo this time. He originally thought that he could capture Tang Zheng easily. He even had Song Yu, who knew him well. He also watched as Tang Zheng died. But the strange thing was that he actually came back to life. Without a doubt, he must have faked his death and fooled him. This was a great humiliation, and it made him fly into a rage. Later, he found that the Japanese did not gain any benefits, and they were killed until they threw away their helmets and armor, and almost all of them were wiped out. He then realized that Tang Zheng was not alone, but had many strong reinforcements. This time, he came to Huaxia from thousands of miles away. It was really dangerous. It turned out that he had always been a frog at the bottom of the well. Huaxia was not as simple as he thought. As for killing Tang Zheng to avenge his son, he did not hold any hope for the time being. So he hurriedly changed locations overnight and finally arrived at the embassy. Speaking of which, the vampires had been plotting for centuries. The Atlantic Empire had a great relationship with the vampires. Many of the high-ranking officials were vampires, and the ambassador to China was one of them. Nicholas already knew that all the airports were being monitored. It was like an inescapable net. Only then did he gradually realize how powerful Tang Zheng was in China, to the point that even the government chose to turn a blind eye to it. There was another reason why he did not rush to escape, and that was the dragon's roar that night. He had heard from various sources that the sound was the legendary dragon's roar, which meant that there was a dragon hiding in the capital. The dragon was Huaxia's spiritual totem, the most mysterious existence. It turned out that it really existed in the world. Nicholas understood what this meant. If he could find this dragon, it would be of great help to him. So he took the risk and stayed, waiting for an opportunity to find this dragon. However, he did not expect Tang Zheng to be so determined to break into the embassy and start a massacre. With just a few people, he defeated the vampires and werewolves he brought. Only then did he realize how wrong his decision to stay was, so he ran away without thinking. As for the dragon, he did not care about it for the time being. Saving his life was more important. However, Tang Zheng and the others were too anxious to escape the hotel. They happened to see many foreign faces in the banquet hall, so they were prepared to slip through. Unexpectedly, Tang Zheng's judgment was very accurate. Seeing that the plan had failed, he had no choice but to continue running. However, how could Tang Zheng give him this chance? His finger fiercely pointed at his back, and the power was no less than that of a sword. Nicholas had no choice but to counterattack with his sword. The War Soul sword pierced towards Tang Zheng from a very strange angle. After Nicholas obtained the War Soul sword, he could not put it down. He understood that it was a divine weapon, far better than his own, so he kept it for his own use. War Soul sword. Chapter 889. He had finally found the War Soul sword. Seeing the War Soul sword thrusting towards him, Tang Zheng sneered. Nicholas, do you really think that you can control the War Soul sword in your hands? Sword spirit. With a thought from Tang Zheng, the sword spirit activated, causing the war soul sword to buzz and tremble, flying out of Nicholas's hands. Nicholas did not expect this scene and could not help but turn pale with fright. He stared dumbfoundedly at the flying war soul sword. How could this be? Tang Zheng grabbed the war soul sword and laughed playfully. Is my sword something that anyone can take away? Shwa. With that, he slashed at his opponent. Nicholas hurriedly retreated, but Tang Zheng was even faster, following him like a shadow, the tip of the sword pointed straight at his forehead. Damned fellow! Nicholas quickly transformed, and a huge cloak covered his body. With a whoosh, the cloak covered the sky and swept towards the war soul sword. Puff! The war soul sword seemed to be unstoppable as it cut open a crack in the cloak and then drove straight in. Nicholas was so scared that his soul almost left his body. He never thought that the power of the war soul sword would be so great. It was much more powerful than when he first saw it in the castle. Is almost equal to however, he did not know that the war soul sword had already become a sacred artifact, so its power was naturally incomparable. Moreover, Tang Zheng's cultivation had also risen to the 7th stage of the Jindan stage, so the power of his sword was naturally even greater. Nicholas retreated in panic, but he was still a step too late. The war soul sword had opened a huge wound on his body, causing blood to flow out. However, because of the Strigoy's special physique, the blood instantly stopped flowing. He glared at Tang Zheng ferociously and hysterically said, "I really regret letting you escape." Tang Zheng snorted and sneered, "I won't make the same mistake. This time, you won't be able to escape even if you have wings." "You are no match for me," Nicholas said in a loud voice. Tang Zheng had to admit that Nicholas's strength was equivalent to the 9th stage of the Jindan stage, and was even stronger than Tang Zheng. The reason why he was able to injure his opponent with this move was mainly because it was a surprise attack. If he wanted to truly take Nicholas's life, it would not be that easy. If he can't, then do you think I'm just a decoration? Tian Chanzi's voice suddenly sounded behind Nicholas. Nicholas's expression suddenly changed as he dodged to the side in a sorry state. He had seen Tian Chanzi's skills on the monitor and knew that he was definitely his opponent. Otherwise, he would not have been so anxious to escape. What he feared most was Tian Chanzi. He looked at Heaven Monk with a complicated expression and asked hoarsely, "Who exactly are you?" Tian Chanzi said murderingly. Tian Chanzi said murderingly. Tian Chanzi said. Nicholas's eyelids twitched as he said, "Did you and Tang Zheng join hands to kill my son? To deal with that little bat, there's no need for me to do anything. Tang Zheng alone is enough." Tian Chanzi said disdainfully, "However, to deal with an old bat like you, it seems that I have no choice but to do something." Although Nicholas was burning with anger, he secretly glanced at the exit from the corner of his eyes, obviously waiting for an opportunity to escape. Tian Chanzi saw through his thoughts and said disdainfully, "If I let you escape in front of me, then what about my reputation?" After saying this, he pointed his finger at Nicholas. Nicholas hurriedly dodged, but Tian Chanzi's aura was firmly locked onto him. No matter how he struggled, it was futile. Pooh! The sword chi penetrated his chest and back, and blood dyed his cloak red. He staggered back, but it was not fatal. After all, his self-healing ability was very heaven-defying. Although this injury was not light, he was still able to heal in a few breaths. His recovery speed is faster than other vampires. This kind of attack can't hurt him. Tang Zheng reminded loudly, and once again raised his sword to attack. Being attacked from the front and back, and all of them were experts, especially Tian Chanzi. Nicholas was not a match for him at all, so he did not dare to confront him. He could only turn around and face Tang Zheng. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, the two had already exchanged dozens of moves. They were as fast as lightning, using speed to fight speed, using strength to overcome strength. Tang Zheng's true energy was surging, but he was not injured. Instead, his fighting spirit was high. Fighting with experts of this level could really let him display his full strength and increase his actual combat experience. Let's end this quickly. Seeing that Tian Chanzi seemed to intend to be a spectator, and let Tang Jing practice, Tang Jing also wanted to practice, but after all, there were too many people here, and it would affect too much. Therefore, after exchanging more than 100 moves with his opponent, he shouted loudly. Tian Chanzi shrugged, and with a flick of his finger, 5 rays of sword chi shot out. Pooh! Nicholas's body trembled, and 5 holes appeared on his body, including his heart. His movements slowed down, and he hurriedly circulated his energy to heal, but the healing speed could not keep up with the speed of Tian Chanzi's attack. Tian Chanzi flicked his finger again, and his body really became riddled with holes, and blood flowed to the ground. He howled in pain. He was furious, but there was nothing he could do. This was a crushing defeat of absolute strength. Even if he had the ability to heal, it would be of no help. Tang Jing could not help but sigh. This was the fighting strength of a 9th grade Yuanying, and he was still far from it. He did not sit and watch the show, but took the opportunity to grab his opponent's shoulder. Nicholas tried to resist, but War's soul was immediately placed on his neck. Nicholas still wanted to escape, but War's soul flashed a cold light, and was about to cut off his head. Stop! Suddenly, a loud roar rang out, and 2 people appeared at the door, Ding Liang and number 2. The 2 looked anxious, and the roar came from number 2. Tang Jing, stop, you can't kill him. Number 2 said resolutely. Tang Jing's movement stopped, but he grabbed Nicholas's shoulder with one hand, and War's soul was placed on his neck, not moving at all. Why are you here? Tang Jing looked at the 2 suspiciously. Ding Liang smiled fawningly. You caused such a big commotion, how could we not come? The matter at the embassy has already been settled, but this person is the head of the Rockefeller family, and is of great use, so we can't kill him. Tang Jing did not give him any face, and coldly snorted, killing him is the greatest use to me. Ding Liang's face stiffened, and he continued to persuade, killing him will only relieve the hatred in your heart, but if you leave him alive, we can squeeze out more value. What value? Ding Liang hesitated for a moment, then said, the Atlantic Empire has already agreed to exchange their aircraft carrier technology for his life. Tang Jing knew that aircraft carrier technology had always been Hua Xia's weakness, and the Atlantic Empire's greatest reliance was their aircraft carriers, which could be deployed to any area. Tang Jing coldly snorted, they're really willing to spend a lot of money. Ding Liang smiled, yes, this person is too important to the Atlantic Empire, which is why they're willing to spend so much. Since the Atlantic Empire is willing to exchange their aircraft carrier technology for him, that means his value is even greater than the aircraft carrier technology. Letting the tiger return to the mountain is the biggest hidden danger. Tang Jing thought for a moment, and said firmly. Ding Liang was slightly stunned, but he also turned around, and it was indeed so. He looked at Nicholas with a complicated gaze, and was speechless. Number 2 said in a deep voice, where did you get all these twisted logic from? This is the decision of the higher-ups, you just have to follow it. Is that so? Tang Jing jokingly laughed, I already said that this matter has nothing to do with me, and you guys really are like that. Number 2 raised his eyebrows and asked with an unfriendly expression, are you going to disobey the order? I don't want to disobey the order, but if I don't kill this person, the heavens will not tolerate it. Tang Jing didn't kill Li Xiaotian because he didn't do anything that the heavens would not tolerate. Nicholas, on the other hand, was not like this. Not only did he suck human blood, but he had also cruelly killed countless innocent people, especially when he tried to activate the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array on Sky Mountain. This made Tang Jing feel no pity for him. Seeing Tang Jing directly refuse, Number 2 flew into a rage and said, are you going against the country? Don't put a hat on me, I won't fall for it. Tang Jing retorted, you can't represent the country. Number 2 was originally a martial artist, so how could he be as eloquent as Tang Jing? His face flushed red, and he said angrily, I said you can't kill him, so you can't kill him. Whoosh! A fist directly flew towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's hands were not empty, and he kicked out. Bang! A powerful force came from the soles of his feet. If not for the fact that he had cultivated the chaotic Vajra spell, his bones would have been broken. You are so ruthless. Tang Zheng flew into a rage, but at the same time, he was secretly shocked. His opponent's strength was beyond his imagination. He was actually stronger than him. Although it was only a simple contact, Tang Zheng had already made a general judgment. This palace expert was indeed worthy of his reputation. Number 2's first attack missed, so he launched another series of attacks. Creak creak. All of a sudden, Xiao Bai appeared out of nowhere. He opened his mouth wide and a beam of fire shot up into the sky. Ah dash. Number 2 turned pale with fright and retreated in a panic. He didn't expect there to be a fire attack. A burnt smell slowly filled the air. His hair and eyebrows were burnt by the fire, and he was in an extremely sorry state. Number 2 had never experienced such a thing before. He glared at the complacent Xiao Bai who was standing on Tang Zheng's shoulder and shouted angrily, "Bastard, you can even spit fire, I'm going to roast you." Xiao Bai could understand human language, and immediately flew into a rage. He bared his teeth at Number 2, and spat out small flames at the side of his mouth, as if he could taste the taste of roasted pig again at any time. Tang Zheng squinted his eyes, a cold light flashed, and asked, "You want to roast my Xiao Bai? So what if I roast it? It's just a demonic beast's." Number 2 said disdainfully. To Tang Zheng, Xiao Bai was not only a demonic beast, but also the holy beast of the witch clan. In addition, after interacting with each other day and night, Xiao Bai was more like a part of his life, a relative. Hearing Number 2's shameless words, how could Tang Zheng not be angry? Ding Liang had been undercover for many years, and was good at observing people's expressions. Seeing Tang Zheng's reaction, he knew something was wrong. He hurriedly advised, "Calm down, Tang Zheng, we are just passing on orders from above. We have no other choice. Please understand, Nicholas is indeed more valuable alive than dead." Chapter 890. 5 words, simple and powerful, like a strange rock with distinct edges and corners, exuding an unyielding aura. Ding Liang and Number 2 did not expect Tang Zheng to be so stubborn. Even Nicholas was shocked. He originally thought that if the officials came, he would be able to escape this calamity. As long as he returned to the Atlantic Empire, he would use the power of the country to deal with Huaxia. He was confident that he had many ways to make this ancient country suffer at the national level. But he did not expect Tang Zheng to be so stubborn, giving him an ominous premonition. "Tang Zheng, don't be impulsive," Ding Liang continued to persuade, but before he could finish, his eyes widened as he watched in disbelief as Tang Zheng actually made a move. Yes, Tang Zheng, in order to avoid any more trouble, might as well directly take action. "How dare you, stop!" Number 2 roared again and jumped up to the roof, jumping from the chandelier above and pouncing towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng acted as if he did not see. With so many people, if they could not stop a palace expert, then he might as well buy a piece of tofu and knock himself to death. Thus, with a turn of his hand, the battle soul sword also followed suit. Pooh! Nicholas watched in disbelief as the sword edge cut open his throat, blood flowing out. The sword edge's momentum was not reduced, directly cutting off his neck. The huge head directly flew out. He did not even have time to scream, it was already gone. Even if Nicholas had an immortal body, there was nothing he could do in this situation. Moreover, Tang Zheng did not give up just in case. With a point of his finger, a ball of true fire flew out and wrapped around Nicholas's head and body. Boom! As if he had been doused in gasoline, Nicholas turned into 2 balls of raging fire. Number 2 was intercepted by Tian Chanzi in midair. When Tian Chanzi made his move, his attack was like an avalanche. Bang! Number 2's chest was hit by a palm. Like a kite with a broken string, he broke the chandelier on the roof and directly smashed into the rostrum. Pooh! spurting out a mouthful of blood, his aura weakened to the extreme. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Clutching his chest, he looked at Tian Chanzi in disbelief. You. Wah. Before he could finish his words, he spurted another mouthful of blood. He had heard that Tian Chanzi's cultivation was amazing, but he didn't expect the gap between him and Tian Chanzi to be so big. This was simply a natural chasm that couldn't be crossed. Tian Chanzi looked at him coldly and said, "You want to hurt Tang Zheng? Do you really think I'm just a decoration?" Number 2 was on the verge of death and had no strength to refute. In addition to anger, there was also deep despair in his eyes. As an expert, what could be more depressing than being defeated so easily by someone else? Seeing Tian Chanzi walking towards him step by step, his murderous aura enveloping him, Number 2's mind trembled, but he had no power to resist at all. He was like a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. He regretted it immensely. How could he be so reckless? Before he left, the chief had repeatedly warned him not to act on impulse and to plan carefully before acting. But when it came to it, he forgot all of this. In the end, he was still a simple-minded martial artist who didn't see the current situation clearly. Ding Liang was stunned. The imperial expert who was shocking in his eyes couldn't even withstand a single blow. Only then did he experience Tang Zheng's power again. He couldn't just watch the situation worsen. Thus, he suppressed the fear in his heart with great difficulty and stood in front of Number 2. His face was uglier than if he had eaten yellow lotus. He said in a trembling voice, "Don't hurt him. Otherwise, things will really worsen and become serious." After confirming that Nicholas had been burned to ashes, Tang Zheng turned his head and looked at Number 2 and Ding Liang with a mocking expression. Since Number 2 couldn't see the situation clearly, then he would help him see it clearly. Now Number 2 should know who was in charge here and who was the commander. "Ding Liang, this time I'll give you face and let him go. In the future, don't be so arrogant in front of me. Don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you're an imperial expert. Let me tell you, in front of me, you're nothing," Tang Zheng said lightly. His tone was very calm, but the strong self-confidence and murderous intent revealed made people's hearts beat like drums. Number 2 couldn't say a word to refute. His face turned from white to red, and he couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. "Whether I kill Nicholas or not, that's my business. Because he's my captive. No one can tell me what to do. You can take this back," Tang Zheng continued. Ding Liang and Number 2's eyelids twitched. Too arrogant. Not only did he not put them in his eyes, but he also didn't put the people behind them in his eyes. Tang Zheng wasn't really so arrogant and conceited, but the other side repeatedly believed that his will was right and repeatedly provoked Tang Zheng's actions. That was why he had no choice but to make his position clear. Moreover, now he had the strength to make his position clear. If he didn't say anything, then he would only be seen as weak. Number 2 was angry but didn't dare to say anything. He thought to himself that he would definitely pass on these words and let the chief know how arrogant he was. He definitely wouldn't have a good ending. Ding Liang sighed inwardly. With Tang Zheng's current strength, it wouldn't be easy for the government to deal with him. He was already extremely benevolent to cooperate with the government like this. One had to know that Rockefeller's influence in the West was huge. They didn't care about the government at all, and many times even suppressed them secretly. What president? They didn't dare to put on airs in front of Nicholas. It was just that Nicholas never dreamed that he would meet his Waterloo in Huaxia, and that he would fall and be reduced to ashes. If the government understood the situation clearly, they might be able to get along well with Tang Zheng, mutually beneficial and win-win situations. If they didn't understand the situation clearly and viewed Tang Zheng as their enemy, then the situation might get out of control, and it wouldn't be beneficial to anyone. Ding Liang had been in the Atlantic Empire all year round, so he was very clear about this. He made up his mind to give some suggestions when he returned, so as to prevent the situation from falling into chaos because of Number 2's one-sided words. "Let's go." Tang Zheng led the crowd away without looking back, leaving behind a scene of devastation. Naturally, they would be the ones to clean up the mess. The few of them walked through a few streets before stopping. Tang Zheng asked curiously, "This time, we didn't find anyone from the island nation. Where are they?" Yan Padian seemed to have awoken from a dream, and regained his senses from the situation just now. Just now, he was also shocked by Tang Zheng's domineering aura. Even though he was the head of the Yan clan, he didn't dare to disrespect the authorities like this. He sighed in his heart. The new generation overtook the old, and the old died on the beach. He really couldn't compare to Tang Zheng. The people of the island nation are more cunning than Rockefeller's people, and they know our habits better, so we haven't found them yet. Yan Padian said regretfully. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment, then said, "Could they also be in the island nation's embassy in China?" "No." Yan Padian immediately denied. "When we first discovered Rockefeller's traces, we also had this suspicion, so we specially sent people to the island nation's embassy in China to spy on them. We can confirm that they are not hiding inside." Tang Zheng frowned, and said, "Since they are not in the embassy, then where are they?" The capital was not big, but it was not small either. If a group of foreigners wanted to hide without a trace, it would definitely not be an easy thing to do. Find them. Even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground, we have to find them. Tang Zheng said coldly. "Don't worry, as long as they don't leave Huaxia, they will definitely reveal themselves." Yan Padian was full of confidence. After hesitating for a moment, Tang Zheng asked again, "Is there any movement from the imperial city?" Yan Padian glanced at his son and grandson, waved his hand, indicating for them to walk further away. The matter of the 5-clawed golden dragon was a secret. He had promised not to tell anyone, including his family. Yan Qishan and Yan Luyun looked at them with complicated expressions. Without saying a word, they obediently retreated into the distance. Only then did Yan Padian say in a low voice, "The officials have already sent soldiers to surround the imperial city so tightly that not even a mosquito can penetrate it. That area was originally a tourist area, but now it's completely sealed off." Tang Zheng could understand, and said, "Then it looks like the officials are going to take action." The officials had long suspected, so they naturally wouldn't sit idly by. Yan Padian asked worriedly, "Then, will the golden dragon be affected?" "Don't worry, it won't have any effect. Even if they dig 3 feet into the ground, they can do it. As long as they struggle for a long time and there is no result, they will naturally not continue." Tang Zheng was not worried. Seeing that he was so confident, Yan Padian put his worried heart back into his stomach and continued, "The people of the capital are in an uproar over what they have seen and heard in the past few days. The dragon's roar can still be used as an excuse, but the appearance of the Strigoi and the werewolf has caused the people to panic, especially when someone directly took a video and spread it online, causing a lot of shock and panic. When Rockefeller kidnapped the people around Tang Zheng, he did everything he could. With great fanfare, it had indeed caused quite a bit of an impact. How did the authorities deal with it? They deleted the relevant content in time and have been trying their best to refute the rumors, saying that this is a special effect for a movie." Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. This was the usual style of the officials, but other than that, there was no other way that was more effective. Otherwise, if the existence of the Strigoi and the werewolf were to be announced, it would definitely cause panic and social unrest. The reason why Rockefeller chose to act in such a public manner was probably because he had such vicious thoughts. Although the people would still suspect and guess, as long as they guided the general direction, there wouldn't be any big problems. The authorities were very experienced in this area, so Tang Zheng wasn't worried. However, paper would not be able to wrap up the fire. In the future, when more cultivators appeared, or when the prophesied return of the demon clan's large army, or when the world ended, the existence of cultivators would no longer be a secret and the people would eventually know. At that time, the world structure would undergo an earth-shattering change. No matter what the direction of the world was, the key was to resolve the crisis in front of them. The appearance of the island nation made Tang Zheng extremely vigilant, because the island nation was definitely related to the 100 Transformation Star Lord. Chapter 891. Ding Liang and Number 2 stood in front of the bureau chief in fear and trepidation. Number 1 and Number 3 also stood beside them. Ding Liang reported his encounter with Tang Zheng in detail. The bureau chief's face was as dark as water. Number 1 and Number 3 could no longer suppress the anger in their hearts. Especially when they saw the battered and heavily injured Number 2, they couldn't wait to find Tang Zheng and settle the score. Ding Liang nervously finished his report and stood respectfully at the side, not daring to say another word. The bureau chief snorted and said, "He's actually this arrogant?" Ding Liang's throat was dry as he said with fear, "He's a young man after all, and he's in the right, so it's inevitable." After all, he was an old member of the National Security Bureau, and was also saved by Tang Zheng from the Atlantic Empire. Naturally, he was grateful to Tang Zheng, so he didn't forget to speak up for him. However, Number 2 angrily added fuel to the fire. He doesn't even care about the bureau chief. Preposterous. Number 1 shouted. "Bureau chief, please give the order, we'll go and capture him." "Capture him for what? What do you want? Kill him?" The bureau chief asked in annoyance. "This kind of unstable factor can't be used by us, so we should get rid of him as soon as possible," Number 1 said with a murderous look. Ding Liang trembled in fear. He wanted to continue speaking up for Tang Zheng, but the bureau chief beat him to it. "So, this is why you're a subordinate and I'm the bureau chief. I only know how to fight and kill every day." Number 1's face turned red. He lowered his head and didn't say a word. "I've seen him so many times. I've heard his words and observed his actions. He's not really a rebellious person. As long as you don't touch his reverse scale, everything is fine," the bureau chief said in a low voice. If Tang Zheng heard this judgment, he would definitely give him a thumbs up and praise his foresight. The bureau chief was right. Tang Zheng didn't want to be enemies with anyone. He only wanted to protect the people around him. As long as they didn't touch his reverse scale, he was a simple and sunny big boy. If anyone didn't know how to adapt to the situation, then he would transform into a killing god and wouldn't be merciful. Moreover, don't you know where our focus is now? The bureau chief asked. "Yes, I was wrong." "It's good that you know you were wrong. Don't be impulsive and start a conflict with Tang Zheng again." "What about the Atlantic Empire?" Ding Liang was overjoyed. Although the chief had a grudge, he wasn't too furious. The Atlantic Empire's actions in Huaxia are so vile, and the evidence is conclusive. What else do they want? Do you want me to go public and become an international scandal? So what if Nicholas is dead? Do they still want to start a war? Ding Liang subconsciously shook his head. Huaxia was now a great country. Whether it was in terms of economy or military, it was no longer as weak as it used to be. If the Atlantic Empire insisted on doing so, they would definitely start a third world war, and their politicians would not be so stupid. Actually, Tang Zheng said something very well. The Atlantic Empire was willing to use the aircraft carrier technology in exchange for Nicholas's life. This means that Nicholas's life is more valuable than the technology. If we let the tiger return to the mountain, although we would still get some small benefits, the Atlantic Empire would still get the biggest benefits. The bureau chief sighed faintly and changed his tone. Although Tang Zheng is young, he sees things more clearly than many people. This time, we didn't see things as clearly as he did. We were all confused by the olive branch from the Atlantic Empire. Number 1 said unwillingly, "Then what about the aircraft carrier technology?" A hint of pride flashed across the bureau chief's eyes as he said, "The Great Huaxia is a gathering of talents. Is it really impossible to solve those technical problems? If the Atlantic Empire can do it, so can we. It's just a matter of time." "Yes, I understand." Number 1 was speechless. The bureau chief waved his hand and gestured for Ding Liang to leave. He then arranged for Number 3 to help Number 2 to recuperate. He then asked Number 1, "How's the situation in the Imperial City?" "I have already sent people to guard it. Not even a fly can think of flying in or out." We are conducting a comprehensive inspection of the Imperial City. The ground below is solid. However, we are not giving up. The dragon's roar came from below, so we are speeding up the construction. We must find it even if the dam is breached. The bureau chief nodded and said, "This is of utmost importance. The dragon is the totem of Huaxia. If we find the dragon, it will be a great thing for our entire race. It is a blessing from the heavens to our Huaxia. Just like the dragon god, our race and country will definitely soar and soar into the sky. Yes, I will do my best to complete this task. If you find anything, you must inform me immediately. I want to be the first to know, understand? I know before the other chiefs. Do you understand?" The bureau chief looked at number 1 sternly. Number 1 understood tacitly. Although the bureau chief stood at the top and was above millions of people, there were still competitors. This time, the competitors would definitely be paying attention to this matter. It was just that they were one step ahead and had the advantage. The dragon was very important. Whoever was the first to see the dragon, or even obtain the dragon, had a special meaning. Number 1 was very clear about this point, so he agreed without thinking. "Rest assured, bureau chief. I will make a military pledge. The dragon search mission will be completed perfectly. No one else can think of getting a share of it." The bureau chief smiled in relief. Night fell in the Imperial City. The lights were still shining brightly, as if it was daytime. There was a sentry every 5 steps and a sentry every 10 steps. The security was very tight. Under the bright lights, the bombed ruins were already clear and clean. The hard stone slabs were also lifted up. Large machinery was working, excavating the ground. Bang! A large piece of soil was dug out from the ground and poured into the back of the car. Number 1 stood beside the car and stared at the hole on the ground that was getting bigger and bigger. It was as if a dragon would fly out from it at any time. His expression was serious, but it was hard to hide his excitement. If they really dug out a dragon, what kind of scene would that be? It was hard for him to imagine, but there was no doubt that it would be a scene that he would remember for the rest of his life. Outside the Imperial City, there were still scattered tourists gathered yesterday. But after being driven away by the military police, no one dared to come here. Although the people were very curious about what happened in the Imperial City, it was not difficult for the smart people to think that all this might have something to do with the roar that shook the sky. The two of them hid in a nearby forest and blended in with the dark environment. "Master, that roar came from the Imperial City." "Oh, a dragon's roar. Hee, I didn't expect that there was a dragon hidden under the Imperial City." Interesting. Then what should we do?" "Master will take you to see the real dragon." Yamada no Orochi wanted to turn into a dragon but didn't succeed. This time, let it succeed. Let's see it. After saying that, he stretched out his palm, and a strange giant snake with 8 heads wriggled its body in his palm. Yamada no Orochi had shrunk to the size of an earthworm. It obediently lay in the palm of 100 Faces Star-Lord. Its 8 heads kept flicking their tongues, looking ferocious and terrifying. These two people were 100 Faces Star-Lord and Junko. When Junko heard the dragon's roar last night, although she did not know what it was, she immediately reported it to her master. 100 Faces Star-Lord had fled to the island nation. He was ready to bring Yamada no Orochi back to help him. Without the demon beast, he always felt that something was missing. Naturally, he had to bring a new servant with him. After hearing Junko's description, 100 Faces Star-Lord immediately deduced that it must be a dragon's roar. Although he had never seen a real dragon, he was after all a person from ancient times. Although he had never eaten pork, he had seen pigs run. Naturally, he knew more than ordinary people. Junko's eyes flickered. She could not hide her surprise. Dragons are a legendary existence. Can we really see one? Of course, but I don't know why there is a dragon in the Imperial City. It's strange, 100 Faces Star-Lord muttered to himself suspiciously. You said that Tang Zheng and others were also in the Imperial City when the dragon's roar sounded, right? Yes, according to reliable information, that was the case. At that time, Song Yu buried explosives in order to kill him, but unexpectedly, it did not kill him. Instead, it caused the dragon's roar. Junko nodded. These days, she had been hiding from her opponent's tracking. It was very difficult to hide, but she had also collected a lot of information. 100 Faces Star-Lord frowned. So he also heard the dragon's roar. He was here at that time, so it is impossible for him not to investigate. Has he found anything? Master, according to my judgment, he should not have. If he had found something, then the Huaxia officials would not have put the Imperial City under martial law. The dragon must not have appeared. Junko analyzed. 100 Faces Star-Lord thought for a while and said, that makes sense. Hee, then it can only mean that Tang Zheng is not capable enough to find the real dragon. Then it will be easy for me. Junko asked curiously, Master, what should we do after we find the real dragon? 100 Faces Star-Lord's eyes flashed with cold light. He laughed and said lightly, slay the dragon. Slay the dragon? Junko's heart beat wildly. Her master actually wanted to slay the dragon. This was too bold. It was not something she dared to think about. However, this also made her blood boil. Only by following such a master could she achieve greater things. This life was 1,000 times more interesting than the life in the imperial tutor's residence. Now, she had broadened her horizons. She was no longer limited to the imperial tutor's residence or the island nation. What benefits does slaying the dragon bring us? She could not hold back her curiosity and asked. 100 Faces Star-Lord's gaze fell on Yamada no Orochi and said with a smile, a dragon is a good thing. Everything on its body is a treasure. It is like a priceless treasure house. Junko's interest was greatly increased. Her eyes lit up. Master, after I eat the dragon's inner core, I can also transform into a dragon. Yamada no Orochi suddenly said. Yes, I will not forget you. I will help you realize your dream. I also look forward to having a dragon as a servant. Yamada no Orochi hurriedly said, after I become a dragon, I will do my best to go through fire and water for Master. 100 Faces Star-Lord laughed dryly. Yamada no Orochi had no choice but to be so docile. Even if it transformed into a dragon, it would not be able to escape from 100 Faces Star-Lord's grasp. This was because he had used a secret technique to imprint a mark on Yamada no Orochi's soul. Unless he removed the mark on his own accord, Yamada no Orochi would have to listen to him no matter how powerful it became. Otherwise, he could take Yamada no Orochi's life with a single thought. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.